will be able to chime in. Okay, great. So it's March 18th, and this is the De-Escalation Workshop Day 1. My name is Alexandra Appleton, and for recording purposes, I would just like to verify that you all are giving consent to this being recorded. If you can, I will call your name and just state your name and state whether you give consent to you being recorded at this time. I will start with Heidi. Heidi, I hope I pronounced that right.
Heidi.
And since you're unmuted, thank you.
Yes, I give consent.
Thank you. And that's Hetty Miles. And then forgive me if I pronounce your name incorrectly. Is it Rocio?
Yeah, it's Rocio.
Hi, Rocio. Do you give consent for this for you to be recorded at this point in time?
Yeah, I do.
Okay, cool. Thank you. And then Tracy, if you're available, can you unmute and then just give consent?
Hi, can you hear me?
Yeah, there you go.
Okay, yes, I give consent.
Okay, great. So,
all right, thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you so much, Tracy. I appreciate all of you. Feel free to hang tight. I will start abruptly at 1:03, just to give folks some time to get in, and we'll get started. Thank you so much for being here. I appreciate you. And then feel free to use the chat or unmute if there's any pressing questions. All right, let's get started. So, good sunrise. I mean, it's a new day, and today is March 18th, and 2021, and this is the first day of the Joint Office COVID-19 response de-escalation workshop. Thank you for joining the de-escalation workshop. We're looking forward to sharing trauma-informed de-escalation techniques and organizational resilience. And as a friendly reminder, this is being recorded for programming purposes. So again, my name is Alexandra Appleton. I use she, her pronouns, and I am the Shelter Equity and Inclusion Analyst here at the Joint Office. I am responsible for leading the equity efforts across the Joint Office, including the COVID-19 response, and this includes training and technical assistance. This workshop is one of many that I hope to provide. And before we jump into participant introductions and agenda, I would like to start this training with a land acknowledgement. Multnomah County rests on the stolen lands of Multnomah, Klamath, and Clackamas bands of Chinook Indian Nation, Tualatin, Kalapuya, Molalla, and many others along the Columbia River. The county is built on stolen indigenous land and built by stolen African people. This land was not stolen by people. This land was not stolen, and people were not enslaved by ambiguous entities and actors. The land was stolen by an African people, and African peoples were enslaved by white settlers who had government support. We also want to honor the members of over 400 tribal communities who live in Multnomah County. Many of these people and their cultures still survive and resist despite the intentional and ongoing attempts to destroy them. Thank you for taking a moment to acknowledge the history of how we are here in this space and honor the people. We use the land acknowledgements and other tools to dismantle colonialism that manifests in how we hold our meetings and how we engage with each other. So I also want to thank everybody again for joining real quick. And I want to do a quick round of introductions. I'm sorry, I'm really nervous and I've been in meetings all day, but I promise you I will calm down very shortly. Let's do a quick round of introductions. When I call your name, and I'll just go down the list, can you please unmute and introduce yourself and allow the folks, if you have a community with you, to introduce themselves. Please introduce your pronouns. We believe it's part of basic respect to call people by their name and pronoun they ask for. So we'll ask everyone to share their name and their gender pronouns you want to be used to refer to you in this space. Also, please share your site, the site that you're based at, and name one thing that you hope to get out of this workshop today. Again, that's your name, that's your pronouns, that's the site that you work at, and then one thing that you hope to get out of this workshop today. And I will just go down the list, and the next name that I see on the list is Adam Barber.
Hello. Adam, he, him. I work graveyard at the Jupiter. And I would like to get off just some, I don't know, I guess some better techniques for when we get late night visitors that aren't supposed to be on property. I feel like I tend to go a little bit too nice guy, and I'd like something a little bit firmer.
Thank you, Adam. Elise, I see you're next.
Hi there, Elise McCallum. I use she, her pronouns. I'm the senior office assistant and kind of the staffing schedule coordinator. I would like to get out of, I don't have a location. I'm all location. And I would like to be able to share what I learned from this training with other people, because I think that's something that I find very valuable, is to be able to retain it myself and then pass it on and share the knowledge.
Thank you, Elise. Brittany?
Hi, all. This is Brittany. She, her pronouns, and physical distancing shelter from the Mount Scott Community Center. I don't know what words I just said. Sorry. It's busy here. I'm happy to be here. I'm excited to see some of my favorite people facilitate this and learn all the things I'm sure that I'm going to learn from this too. Yeah, thanks.
Thank you, Brittany. Danita? Oh, you don't have audio? Okay. All right, you're probably working on it. Okay, so just feel free to chime in. Danita, East, hi. All right, I see you. I'm not sure who the other gentleman or the other individual's name is, but I see you and feel free to add it to the chat. I will, yes, feel free to add your title and all the information in the chat. I will jump to Donald.
Not here. No. Hey, how's it going, everyone? I'm Donald Green, program lead for the VMOs. He, him, his is my pronouns. For this meeting, I would like to just, give some of the information and some of the knowledge that I've learned over the years working in many fields. So I'm here to give instead of get, and also to learn. I'm always open to learn something. So maybe I might be able to learn something from one of you guys as well. Welcome to be, happy to be here.
Thank you, Donald. Dylan?
Hi, I'm Dylan. I use he, him pronouns. I'm a safety and wellness at the Mount Scott Community Center. And I, too, also hope to get some more feedback on how to be more firm with people who are being escalated. Sometimes I also feel like I'm a little too nice and I need to be more direct. So that would be nice to get some feedback on that. That's what I hope to get out of this.
Thank you, Dylan. Floyd?
Hello. My name is Floyd Spears, he, him pronouns. I've taken a few de-escalation classes in my previous position, so just hoping for a refresher, making sure I'm doing everything right, and good to get some other opinions as well.
Thank you, Floyd. Guy?
All right. Hey, this is Guy. I'm he, him. I'm with Mount Scott Community Center. I am with Safety and Wellness. And like Adam said, I'm looking to look for new techniques. And you're never too old to learn. So I'm looking forward to it. Thank you.
Thank you, Guy. And forgive me if I mispronounce anyone's name. Haley?
Yep. My name is Haley. She, her, hers. I work at the Jupiter Hotel. I've never done a de-escalation training before, so I'm just excited to learn some new skills to hopefully apply to my position working with the guests and other people in the community.
Thank you, Haley. Jessica?
Hi, this is Jessica Gardner. I use she, her pronouns. I'm the discharge coordinator for both of the VMOs. And I'm just looking forward to learning the skills in this training because I've also never done a de-escalation training and just learning how to help the guests in the best way possible.
Thank you, Jessica. John?
Hi, my name's John Minen, and I'm Safety and Wellness, Mount Scott Community Center, and I've never done any de-escalation training before, so I'm really looking forward to the ins and outs of it, and just learning better redirection, and yeah, thanks.
Thank you, John. Patrick, I seen your note. Would you like to chime in before I jump to Jordana? No? Jordana, do you want to go?
Hey there, I'm Jordana. My pronouns are they, them. I am a alternative shelter program manager. Really excited for this. I love that people are like, I need to be more direct. I probably need to chill out a little bit. I probably need to like ground down a little bit. So maybe I'll get some tips and tricks for that. Thanks.
Larissa, or it just jumped to Kaylee. So I'll try to stick to the script. Kaylee? Kayla? Kayla, sorry, Kayla. Hi. Kayla, do you want to share your name and your pronouns and the site you're based at? Oh, we can't hear you. You're on mute.
Can you guys hear me now?
Yeah.
Okay. Hi, everybody. I'm Kayla. I work at the Jupiter. My pronouns are she, hers, and I am daytime shift lead.
Thank you. Larissa?
Hi, my name is Larissa. I work at the Jupiter Safety and Wellness. She, her pronouns, and I guess I've never taken this kind of training before, so just to learn how to deal with difficult guests, I guess. So.
Thank you, Larissa. We have London.
London, Safety and Wellness at Central VMO. And I think what I want to get out of the training is just learning how to not to know if I'm saying the wrong or right thing, you know, and not come off as I'm aggressive or you know, just learning a balance.
Thank you, London. Madison? Madison? Are you able to unmute? I can't see visual for everyone, folks, so feel free to help me out. I don't see Madison available. How about Marcus?
Hey, I'm Marcus. I'm the swimsuit shift lead at the Central VMO. And I want to get out of this training just like a refresher, maybe some new tips.
Thank you, Marcus. Marina?
No worries. Yeah, my name is Mariana Ignacio. Pronouns she, her, hers. And I'm a day shift lead at both VMOs. And then what I want to get out of this training is just to learn new skills to better help our guests.
Mackenzie?
Hi, I'm Mackenzie Schreiner. I use she, her pronouns. I'm at Mount Scott. I'm just a general staff. And thing of the workshop is I want to learn how to interact better with the guests so I'm more helpful.
Thank you, Mariana and Mackenzie. And then Mia?
Hi, I'm Mia. I use she, her pronouns. I work general shift at Mount Scott, and I do some other projects on the side for the shelter programs. And I'm excited to be sharing this with you all. I'm excited for times where we can all kind of pool our knowledge together and learn new things together. So it'll be great.
Thank you, Mia. Patricia? Patricia?
I go by Trish. She, her pronouns. Just wanted to take this to get a refresher on how to interact with people on top of the skills that I already have.
Thank you, Trish. Patrick? Hi. Okay. Rocio?
Hi, my name is Rocio. I work at Central BIMO. Well, this is my first time taking this kind of training, so I'm excited.
Thank you. Shayla?
What's up, everybody? I'm Shayla. I'm one of the site managers over at the Central VMO Jupiter. I'm Two-Spirit, so she, they is all good. Also want to say I'm a descendant of the Salish tribe of the Flathead Nation. I am really excited because all of the stuff Alexandra has sent out, she's bringing it. And a lot of with de-escalation, I've done the trainings before, but I want to learn more about active listening because there's a lot of action in de-escalation, but it's also the listening part and really hearing because everyone needs different things. And I'm excited to hear about vicarious trauma as well to take care of myself better. So thank you.
Thank you, Shayla. Susie?
Hi, I'm Susie Rodriguez. I work at the Old Town Village for C3PO. I'm the program engagement specialist. I use all pronouns. I've had a couple de-escalation trainings, and I always think new ones are always better because every situation is different and every little piece of information you've picked up from various places can help. What I'm looking to get from this is I don't have a hard time with the conversational helping people, but when people harass people that are participants at our shelter, I tend to not stay calm very well. So I'd like to try to learn maybe how to de-escalate myself in situations where I'm getting very protective.
Thank you, Susie. Tess?
Is that Tisha?
Hi, sorry. Hi, I'm Tess Poet. I'm safety and wellness over at Mount Scott, morning shift. I'm excited. I use she, her pronouns. I am excited to be in an interactive training in de-escalation. I know the active listening part, and I can mostly stay calm, but I would like some more guidance on the right things to say at the right time. Thank you.
Thank you, Tess. And then is it Tiha?
Tisha Vanoy?
Yes.
I am a villager and a shift lead at C3PO. This is my first time doing anything like this, so I'm just going to sit and listen and take in everything I can, and I use pronouns she, her. Thank you.
And then Tracy?
Hi, everybody. I use she, her pronouns. I work at East as safety and wellness, and I'm happy to be here. And what I would like to get out of this is to learn de-escalation techniques and skills. Yeah, thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Am I missing anybody that on the line? I'm going to try to catch up in the chat. So we have Patrick, he, him, pronouns. They lead at Mount Scott Community Center. First time doing the class and hoping to get new ideas and way to de-escalate. Maddie is here. Maddie, if you weren't able to introduce yourself and you would like to, do you want to?
Yes, I would. Thank you. Yeah, sorry I got in here a little bit late. My name is Maddie. My pronouns are they, them. I am a program engagement specialist at the queer camp of C3PO. And if we're maybe saying like a little bit of what we're looking forward to or want to get out of this. So I'm just grateful for this learning opportunity, and well, the more de-escalation trainings, the better. So thank you. Glad to be here.
Thank you. Am I forgetting anybody?
My name's Heidi. I'm a shift lead at the Mount Scott for Graveyard. I want to say thank you for having this training, and I'm super excited to learn more skills. I've done de-escalation many times, but I'm assuming that I'm going to learn even more today and be able to pass it on to my night shift crew.
Thank you. And then we have Marcus, pronouns he, him, his. And then we have Shayla Cat at C3PO. Sorry, was late. Okay, so real quick, just give me a second because I recognize that I need to fix something on the PowerPoint before I present, and then we will just jump right into it, logistics, and we'll get started, okay? Forgive me, just I want to make sure I got this on point. Okay, I got it. We're good. All right, so can everybody, are y'all are not able to see what I'm seeing, right? I mean, y'all see me, right?
Yes. Shannon?
Sorry, hold on. I got this. I got this. I got a lot of stuff going on. I just want to make sure I got it together. Okay. Any affirmations would help me. Trust me. I'm dying over here.
You're being recorded, if that helps.
You're doing a great job.
Don't do me like that.
She's beauty and she's grace. She's Miss United States.
She's got it.
Okay, cool. Can you see the de-escalation workshop up on the screen?
Yes.
Okay, it's all green, correct?
Yep.
Yeah. Okay, cool. So one of the things that I need to do real quick is just explain this and then we'll get started. And I can't see y'all, so just stop me and then I'll hope to catch y'all up. So de-escalation is a strategy that will allow us to remain in control at times and support a lot of different people anywhere with any issue and avoid the wrong response, which can make a situation worse, right? So de-escalation is a behavior that is intended to prevent escalation and conflicts. And it's also referred to as approaches in conflict resolution. And when individuals become committed to behaviors that tend to like escalate conflict, specific measures and actions can be taken to avoid like further escalation. So the intention of this workshop is to introduce the guiding principles that form the basics of trauma-informed conflict resolution and crisis interventions, and will include like guidance on shelter response protocols and safety on the job. So if you are experienced in de-escalation, this session can affirm what you already know, and you can blend together varied previous training and practices. We encourage all folks, including those new to the topics or techniques, to be curious and to learn and lean into discomfort, share techniques, and ask questions. I really appreciate that folks are able to share what they would like to get out of this training. Again, this is the first pilot, and we're just gonna take it, wing it, and take what we can and leave the rest, and please provide feedback. So this workshop will not encourage or direct staff to break up fights or any techniques for individuals already out of control and violent. That's not what this workshop is about. Instead, it's about discussing strategies for mitigating situations from escalating and addressing the elevation. So this space is also not a process group. If a situation did occur as directed, did not occur as directed in these sessions, as we explained, there are appropriate steps. Please document your thoughts. Speak to a trusted coworker. Feel free to reach out to leadership that are on the staff, your manager, or me. Are we good? Okay. Logistics. I just wanted to start with this quick quote. In silence, there is eloquence. stop weaving and see how the pattern improves. And y'all know I'm terrible with names, but I'm gonna try it. Jalaluddin Rumi. All right, cool. So here is the agenda, and we're already kind of behind. And I just want to be transparent, and I hope that everybody's flexible. Obviously, I'm trying to loop in 15-minute breaks. Please take care of yourselves. And we may not be able to stick to those breaks, but this is recording, and we want to actually be able to provide all of the information that we have prepared for you, because I'm not the only facilitator. There are many, which I will touch base on in a second. But we want to be able to have all this information available to you. So we understand that you may not be able to attend the entire training. We understand that you may have other duties, or you may just need to tap out. Do you, and just know that this is recorded and this is the agenda. So basically, we've already covered the introductions, agenda, and objectives. The objectives come up next slide. The first section is, and we kind of build off sections. So we're going to start with conflict, and then we're going to jump into conflict resolution. Mia, who's on the line, will be facilitating that. That will follow a break. A break will follow that, and then of course, racial justice will be section 3, and Ria will be joining us for racial justice. And then I will cap off section 4 with crisis and nonviolent crisis intervention. I will recap the day learning objectives, and then I'll stay on the line just in case there's some questions about tomorrow's training or some things that we just wanted to touch base in regards to today's training. Let me see. I don't want to forget anything. You know, again, consider taking care of yourselves. Turning off your email is an option. It's not required. And feel free to use the camera and chat as needed. Again, I can't really see all y'all right now. So being trauma informed with me, just, you know, speak to me and call my name. I also wanted to just recognize before we start that Vicarious Trauma, which was also uplifted, is the impact of listening empathetically and actively to other people's journeys, and the stress that staff may experience when feeling responsible for supporting others through their suffering is real. So the Joint Office recognizes that one of the most important ways to cope with this intensity of work is to acknowledge that it will affect you. And this is the even more important time to provide a trigger warning. So we've done our best to identify any materials with any potentially triggering content. We will include verbal warnings and or tags for violence, racism, misogyny, and self-harm. If you have concerns about encountering anything specific in the course material that's presented today, or potentially that could be presented tomorrow, that I have mentioned and or that that is already tagged and would like me to provide additional warnings, please email me directly, and I will do my best to flag any requested triggers for you all in advance. Again, there's a lot of support on this line. I am one of the facilitators specifically for today. We have 3 others, and then there'll be other support staff that'll be in and out of the spaces. Oh, that was cool. I wasn't expecting it to do that. So section 1, conflict. An individual and organization may have a lot of assumptions about conflict, like conflict should be avoided. Conflict always produces like inappropriate reactions. Conflict creates polarization within a team or organization. And we hope to unpack some of those myths about conflict. The learning objectives for this section, real short, is to understand the conflict and related terms, identify factors that may contribute to conflict, recognize and understand responses to conflict, name common causes of conflict in the workplace, identify the negative effects of unresolved conflicts, and understand the 3 steps that must be met to resolve a conflict. And I just want to throw in here, so Donald is here. Donald, are you live? I hope that you are available. So I'm really going to provide like the girth and the foundation in this section, and then Donald's going to kind of chime in and provide that extra level of care and provide that texture to anything or fill in the gaps that I may be missing. Does that sound like a plan, Donald?
Yes, that sounds like a plan.
Okay, cool. So conflict, what is conflict? There are many things that can come to mind when one hears the word conflict. Conflict is a serious disagreement or argument, and it's a clash or incompatibility. Predictable factors include, and are not limited to, each person believes that they know the cause, usually caused by communication failures, an inherent need to be right. So in conflict, each person believes that they know the cause, usually it's caused by communication failures, and usually it's like folks inherently have the need to be right. It can be accumulated, conflict can be accumulated by numerous and like half forgotten minor incidents that lead up to a blow up, like over the last straw or something like that. But conflict can result from opposing differing viewpoints. Conflict can also be a state of disharmony between like incompatible persons, ideas, or like cultures. Conflict is also like it can be open, it can be prolonged, and can escalate into like a crisis situation between individuals within like organizations and even systems of government. And so being able to like um, identify that is key. And if left unresolved, like conflict can disrupt like the workplace and cause stress and anxiety and create a toxic environment and result in lower productivity and morale. So there's some perceptual factors. It's important to understand the role that perception plays during a conflict and how it can influence the way a person reacts and handles themselves. The idea that each party may have a different perception of any given situation, right? That we can anticipate having such differences, and due to a number of factors that create our own perceptual factors or cultural frames and filters that influence like our responses. So like culture, race, and religion, our varying cultural backgrounds influence us to hold certain beliefs about the social structure of our world, as well as the role of conflict in that experience. We may have like learned to value like substantive, procedural, or like psychological needs like differently, and as a result, like that will influence our willingness to like engage in like various different modes of negotiation or even manage a conflict necessarily. Gender and gender orientation is also important. Men and women, or however folks identify, often perceive situations somewhat differently. And based on both their experiences in the world and socialization patterns, like, and that reinforcement, um, the importance of those relationships and the substance of those relationships are really important, right? So like what the way somebody identifies that's important. Sorry, I'm kind of jumbling over my words, but with that being said, gender and gender orientation is very, very important. Knowledge. Parties respond to given conflicts on the basis of knowledge that they may have about an issue at hand. And this includes like situation specific knowledge, like, do I understand what's going on here? Or have I experienced this type of situation before? That type of information can like influence like your willingness or an individual's willingness to engage in efforts to like manage conflict. It's also important, like in dealing with conflict, like impressions of the messenger. Like if the person is sharing the message, the if the person sharing the message is perceived to be like a threat, or powerful or unknown, this can influence like our responses to like even engage with the situation. Um, like we can see that with folks that say, oh, they're big and scary, or this guy is like, or large, or something like that. Like we see that's our impressions of the messenger. um Let me see. Previous experiences. Some of us have profound, significant, like life experiences that continue to influence our perceptions and our current situations. And these experiences may have like left us like fearful or not trusting folks or like not confident and willing to take the chances. Either way, we got to acknowledge like the role of all of our experiences and our individual factors. And then these are the filters that we each individually have and we should have, which are unique. But we have to be thinking about our individuality when we're talking about conflict and conflict resolution. This also means that like we can anticipate that there are many conflicts that will have many significant misunderstandings because of these perceptions. Diversity, inclusion, and equity are key. And I'll just jump forward because I know that we're short on time. Donald, is there anything that you would like to add?
No, so far so good.
Okay, cool. So here we are. The common responses to conflict is like you have your emotional response, and you have your cognitive response, and you have your physical response. The cognitive response involves like assessing like the conflict and coming into a conclusion. Sorry, I jumped over emotional, but I'll go to emotional. An emotional response involves like feelings ranging from anger to fear to despair to confusion, like all those feelings, the range of feelings that you feel, like that's the emotional response. And then there's the cognitive, like that's what we're assessing in our brain, coming to our own conclusions. And then the physical response is the physical response to a conflict could be heightened by stress, body tension, nausea, a rapid like heartbeat, shutdown. It can look very different for various different folks. In future sessions, we like unpack like the common responses and how they show up in like real time. But for right now, we just wanted to acknowledge the initial response. So the common causes of workplace conflicts are interdependence, differences in styles, differences in background, and difference in leadership styles, and differences in personalities. And just real quick, interdependence is the state of being dependent on one another. This is when accomplishment of your goal requires reliance on others to perform their tasks. The completion of your goal is connecting with a guest or doing chores or delivering meals is dependent on others. That can create a conflict, right? Differences in styles and resources. Resource limitations when staff, like for example, like when staff lack resources or the pressure can arise, right? This can lead to like several conflicts within certain teams as they battle for the use of the organizational resources or assets. Like fast changing work environments is the workplace norm and style for us. And so if employees can't keep up with the change in the workplaces, then they feel burned down, and this can lead to workplace conflict between managers and employers, and between coworkers, peers, guests, etc. Differences in background, gender, education, and culture. When employees are too confrontational and don't understand someone else's cultural heritage, it can lead to workplace conflict. Different morals, values, opinions, beliefs. When employees are not respectful of their coworkers' beliefs and values, conflicts can arise. Differences in leadership is a strong one too. So lack of interpersonal or too strong interpersonal skills, such as, or for this case, lack of interpersonal skills, such as the ability to communicate, like that is a leadership that could, mess up your leadership style, for lack of better words. But with that being said, miscommunication can lead to conflict when there's a misinterpretation of the lack of information between two parties. So lack of sensitivity to like race, gender, age, and other areas, like that leads to a certain type of ignorance that can create a moral or legal issue in an organization. The last one is differences in personality and coping techniques. When an employees, staff, or peers exhibit passive aggressive behavior, for example, they are more apt to get into an argument with a worker, and that passive aggressive behavior is just one example. So there are common barriers to effective communication, which is crucial to conflict, which creates conflict, and communication is crucial to conflict resolution. But regardless of the type of communication, verbal, nonverbal, written, listening, or visual, if we don't communicate effectively, we put ourselves and others at risk of experiencing conflict. There are 6 barriers to effective communication every employee and leadership should strive to achieve. And so barriers to effective communication are dissatisfaction or disinterest with one's job. If you're unhappy or have lost interest in your job, you are far less likely to communicate effectively. Being on the giving and receiving end. If your heart isn't into it, then that's a barrier. and perhaps the most difficult to overcome because it involves changing a mindset and typically doesn't change until an individual leaves or seeks support, which we can provide. Inability to listen to others. Active listening is an important aspect of effective communication. You can't engage with someone if you are not listening to them because you will tend to make assumptions about their needs and based on your perceptions and your filters versus the reality. Lack of transparency and trust. It is like extremely difficult to communicate anything when there is a lack of transparency and trust. For example, if staff believes like leadership is holding something back, staff will be anxious, some will speculate, and as a result, it will be more difficult for staff to process any attempt of leadership tries to communicate with staff. And that's just what it is. There are plenty of other examples, but for the sake of time, I'm just gonna move on. Communication styles, they differ, right? Everyone has their own communication style. Some people are very direct while others are like circular communicators or use an indirect approach. Some use detailed data while others like use general and simple statements and so forth. And occasionally like one individual or peer is so entrenched in their way of communicating, they find it difficult to communicate with others who rely on a different style, and that creates conflict. Cultural differences in language, again, that's along the lines of communication, but it's different. It's important to understand that cultural differences in communication is also key, especially in de-escalation. Again, cultural differences exist within our COVID-19 response across the board. And when one doesn't recognize the cultural differences, they risk offending other persons. And it is in the offense that communication breaks down. Some of the barriers to effective communication are things that some of the things I keep meaning, sorry. Barriers to effective communication, some include prejudging, not listening, arguing, criticizing, name calling, engaging in a power struggle over like positionality or even space within the shelter, ordering or threatening. We all should like actively engage in reflecting on our own communication styles, and the list of communication barriers is a good place to start. Reflection, empathy, and empathy is putting yourself in another's shoes, and practice will help you hone your skills. But like nobody's perfect with this, and it's just important to recognize and acknowledge when you make a mistake, which is the first step, and the doors will keep opening by just being accountable. Can somebody just time check for me real quick? Are we rolling up? Yeah, we're almost out. Okay, so I'm just gonna keep rolling. Feel free to take a break, and we're just gonna stick to the script. And I'm pretty sure I will be done by the time 2 o'clock for me to roll. I really apologize, but this is what it is. I'm learning as I'm going. All right, cool. So when conflict is left unresolved, it can have like many negative effects on individuals and organizations. So productivity is lost as more time and energy is spent on dealing with the conflict rather than getting the job done. There's loss of sleep, nervousness, and there's stress that can lead to increased absentees and trauma. Employees may feel that their job status or their job security is being threatened, or they may feel unsafe. Safety concerns is a big one. Another one is ongoing unresolved conflict can cause morale to drop and could damage the self-esteem of those trying to navigate their way, including the guests. Conflict can also lead to passive-aggressive behavior, which we touched on previously, hostility, resentment, and in extreme cases, litigation, legal action, and or physical violence, which we all want to prevent. So conflict is often seen as a bad thing and often referred to as something to be avoided and or prevented. Occasionally a word such as opportunity, like conflict equals opportunity, arises, and such associations indicate like the recognition of a potential like growth and change. So when we resolve constructively, conflict can be a great opportunity for professional and personal like growth, and conflicts can be minimized when staff, management, and others have tools in place to diffuse and resolve conflicts. Staff and management should and can work together to identify key sources of conflict, when conflict tends to occur, and how individuals respond to that conflict. Like, what practice, policy, and procedure do individuals and or teams put in place to prevent and or resolve conflict in the future? That's where we're going to start to lead in this workshop. But before we get into conflict resolution techniques, in the next section, there are 3 sets of needs that must be addressed to address and resolve conflict, which are substantive needs, procedural needs, and psychological needs. So substantive needs, the individuals involved in the conflict need to understand the substance of the conflict. What's the background, the source, and the heart of the problem? You got to know that in order for you to even move forward with trying to get to a resolution. So start getting clear on that. That's tip number 1. Procedural needs. There are needs. These needs are met when the ground rules for resolving the conflict are clearly explained and everyone involved understands their role and responsibility in resolving the conflict. So that's like within teams. There's guidelines that y'all can create. There's fair consideration guidelines in the binders that I have for y'all. Like, what guidelines are y'all going to establish for yourselves in addition to the basics that our organization requires of you to then enhance your ability to resolve conflict within your teams. And then psychological needs. To resolve conflict, a safe environment must be provided for conflict resolution so all individuals are willing to take risks. We want folks to be honest, communicate concerns, differences in solutions openly and without judgment. And substantive, procedural, and psychological needs must be addressed. The safety and environmental safety, I know we can't control safety. We can't create safe environments all the time. We can create safer environments, and that is the harm reduction principle of it. And so that's what we want to. That's the goal that we should be trying to achieve, is to create safer environments. And so try to use that lens as we move forward in this de-escalation workshop. Safer environments. And I'll just conclude on this because I do see the next slide is a break, so I'm not doing too bad. I know I'm rushing, and there will be more activities moving forward, but it's natural when individuals work together. There will be, when individuals do work together, it's natural for us to for conflict to arise and for us to create conflict with each other. But it's when conflict is ignored and not like effectively handled that it can lead to like breakdown, and the program and the organization will suffer, and so will the folks that are receiving our services. So please remember that it is important to recognize that conflict is inevitable. It is the first step of recognizing how to de-escalate to like prevent it. And if you can identify a conflict, then you can prevent a de-escalation. One of the most effective ways to handle conflict in the workplace is to recognize the components of conflicts in the workplace. And in this, hopefully in this short condensed section, because I want us to get to the more important stuff, like really like how do we put this into practice? It's important for us to understand the factors that contribute to conflict, the responses to conflict, the common causes of conflict in the workplace, barriers to effective listening, and the negative effects of unresolved conflict. So I hope that has helped to a certain extent. Our next slide is our break. So I see, according to my clock, it is 1:50. And I guess, Mia, if it's okay, we can, Donald, actually, before we part, is there anything that you would like to add to the section that I just stated for the grace of time?
No, I think that conflict opportunities piece, we're going to talk more about like skills that we can use with that. I use conflict and an opportunity is key for me when building rapport with guests. So we'll talk more about that when we move on to the next session.
Cool, thank you. So why don't folks head to break, and then what we will do is we will regroup at 2 o'clock, and then Mia will lead us into conflict resolution, and we hope to share some skills in that section. Sound good? I'm gonna stop sharing real quick.
You're doing great.
Thank you. I'm gonna drink some water. I think my mouth is so dry right now. All right, right on time. That was a quick little break. Welcome, everybody. Thank you for coming back. Thank you for sticking around. And for those that have just joined, welcome to the Joint Office COVID-19 Response De-Escalation Workshop Day 1. My name is Alexandra Appleton. I use she, her pronouns. I'm the Shelter Equity and Inclusion Analyst. And we just rolled through our first section, which was conflict. And we are going to head right into conflict resolution. I hope that I am presenting correctly. Does everyone see section 2, conflict resolution? All right, we are good to go. I'm going to hand it off to Mia. Again, Mia is the lead facilitator. Donald is the co-facilitator, and I am here for extra support. I will keep an eye on the chat, Mia, and then when you are ready, you just tell me when to push forward.
All right, sounds good. Hi, everyone. I am nervous to do a training over Zoom, so please bear with me. We'll see how this goes for everyone. So my name is Mia. I use she, her pronouns. And I thought I'd give a tiny bit of background about me because I haven't been in the programs for a while. Back in March, when everything started, I was one of the program leads for the physical distancing shelters. And if you hear something meowing in the back, that's my cat. It can't be helped. I apologize. But I am in graduate school and just get the privilege of getting to cover a couple of shifts at Mount Scott here and there and work on a couple of extra projects with everyone. Also, before I was working for the county, I was living in Seattle doing emergency sheltering for youth ages 12 to 17. So also, as I go through these slides, I may be giving examples or talking about things that worked for me or didn't work for me that worked with youth. So if anyone has things to add with adults, please, and Donald, I'll definitely be leaning on you for those examples too. So if it's getting a little too youth specific, just shoot it in the chat or pop up, be like, Mia, stick to adults. That's cool too. I can do that. Awesome. All right, let's try this out. Ready for the next slide? All right, so learning objectives. We are going to learn ways to deal with conflict, understand conflict resolution goals, identify conflict resolution styles, recognize and understand responses to conflict, learn conflict resolution approaches, and learn how to create space for conflict resolution to occur. Good for the next one. All right, I think this is a video, I do believe.
It is. Let's see if it works.
Is there any sound?
I can't hear anything.
No
Can
sound.
you not hear the sound?
Nope.
Okay. Damn. I mean, darn. God. My bad. I'm sorry. Can you hear it now?
Yep.
Yes, can you start it over?
Chances are there will be a disagreement or two. Conflict is a natural part of working in teams, and it can occur for a number of reasons. For example, it could be a conflict caused by processes, overlapping roles, or differences in opinion. Sometimes conflicts can be caused by external influences, but of course the classic reason is interpersonal conflict. Now, when a conflict occurs, there are steps you can take to solve it constructively. The correct way would be to take a step back and ask yourself some challenging questions. Start by asking yourself, why is there a conflict in the first place? Simply by thinking about the cause of the conflict could be enough to give you the solution. It may help to write it down or discuss it with someone. But if that doesn't shed any light, then try seeing it from the other person's point of view. Best-selling author Stephen Covey uses the phrase, seek first to understand, then to be understood. By this he means if you understand the other person's point of view, then you can get your point across much easier. Finally, try to remember what's really important. What are your priorities? Is your point of view in line with the overall objectives of the team? And are you being true to your principles? Try to keep emotions out of it and keep conversations professional. But most importantly, be focused on the solution. Don't dwell on the conflict or hold grudges. Be focused on finding a win-win outcome. Although conflict can be damaging to a team's productivity, it's worth considering the upsides of conflict. Yes, conflict can have its benefits. Think about it. If ideas aren't challenged and different views aren't aired, then how do good ideas ever become great ideas? The Honda Corporation are actually known to encourage conflict in its design teams because they recognize that out of the chaos can come great creativity. So the right amount of conflict can be good, but generally, teams working in harmony perform better. So to be an effective member of a team, you need to be mindful of why conflict occurs and the questions you can ask yourself in order to find a resolution.
All right, cool. Let's stop that. You see the little Honda intro? That's funny. Okay, let's lived experience training. Train the trainer. All right, Mia, I'm gonna push forward.
Okay.
Hold on. Okay, there
So
we go.
it pretty much says it all. But we'll get into some more specifics as well. So particularly with conflict resolution, and in the interest of time, I won't be reading everything on the slides. I might be going a little bit. It might be a little bit brief, but the slides have a great amount. So conflict resolution at the base level is a way for two or more parties to find a peaceful solution to a disagreement. Our goals are to find something we can all agree with, identify possible solutions, and improve, not hurt, the relationship between the people who are in the conflict. We want to be open to other people's perspectives, and we want to define the conflict as something where people are trying to get their personal needs met, rather than solely as a solution to a problem or a problem. Next slide. All right, so this is pretty cool. I really like that. I was really interested in this slide. Thank you, Alexandra. So these are 5 conflict resolution styles. And these are different ways to move through a conflict depending on the situation that you're in and the context of what's going on. And they're things that I think we all do depending on what's happening. So I'm going to go through what each one is, and I'll have an example at the end of when these may be applicable. And if anybody has anything that stands out to them, feel free to type it in the chat or feel free to add in an additional example. So the first one is competitive conflict resolution style. So this is used when quick, decisive action is really important, especially during an emergency or a time where your core values absolutely need to be defended. If the style is used inappropriately, relationships may weaken, especially if it's perceived that you won and the other person lost. And if we use this style, we also risk having a low buy-in from the people involved in the conflict because they may feel like they lost and they don't want to participate in the solution as much as they could in another scenario. So an example of when we might use this type of conflict resolution style may be, let's say that we're in a shelter setting and there's an emergency. One staff member wants to call 911 and the other staff member wants to call Multnomah County Crisis Line first. And there's a moment of arguing about which would be the better resource. If a manager walks in and says, hey, we need to call 911 right now, this is the first priority is the medical emergency, that's an example of using this competitive conflict resolution style. Emergency situation, short and sweet, a more authoritarian response, but it's really useful in the moment. All right, next we have collaborative conflict resolution style. So this is used to find a solution that focuses on all of the concerns. It works to merge insights from individuals with different perspectives. And it's also really useful when commitment and buy-in is needed to find a solution. If I'm looking over this way, I just have another monitor with some notes on it, so that's what's happening. So if this situation is used inappropriately, time and energy may be wasted on issues that are not important to reaching a solution, and the longer process might frustrate some people. This is really taking that like consensus approach where everybody is collaborating and creating one more holistic solution to one more holistic, deeper solution to the problem. And there is a significant time investment. So that would be the negative, but this is like kind of the gold standard for how in the perfect situation, if we had a lot of resources at hand, this is what we may want to do. So an example of this could be staff and guests are bringing up to management that the laundry system isn't working in the shelter. Staff feel like it's taking up too much time for them to manage it on their shifts, and guests feel like it's too inconvenient, so they aren't using it even though they need to. Management calls for a community meeting, and staff and guests come together and brainstorm ideas about how to rework the laundry system. Staff and guests come up with a system that works for everyone. Next, we have compromise and conflict resolution style. So this is used in another instance when timing might be critical. Maybe not as critical as an emergency when we want to use the competitive style, but also when we don't have the full time resources that we might want. When mutually exclusive goals, this could also be used when mutually exclusive goals prevent collaboration to achieve temporary settlement to a complex issue, and as a backup mode when like the competitive or the collaboration styles aren't working. If it's used inappropriately, nobody really gets all of what they want. Like everyone feels like they had to compromise their most important things. And the focus can become on what you did not fix, and then the problems may reoccur because the solution isn't super deep. It's not getting at like the heart of what truly is going on. But again, it's a quick solution, and especially when we're working in shelter environments, sometimes we just need that. So an example of this may be Kate is frustrated because she feels like other staff members aren't cleaning the bathrooms as thoroughly as they should be. Other staff members state that if they did it her way, it would take up too much time. Kate says, okay, instead of focusing on cleaning the mirrors each time, let's just really make sure we're cleaning the showers thoroughly. So neither person gets all of what they want, but they compromise in a way that works. All right, the fourth style is accommodating. So this style is used to build the relationship. It's used when the issue is relatively unimportant to you, but important to the other person. And when you have less experience or expertise than the other person. It's great for preserving harmony and avoiding a major disruption. But if it's used inappropriately, your needs are not met, and you may begin to feel taken advantage of, and it could build that resentment that would lead to a larger conflict later on. An example of this may be a shift lead asks a new staff member to please make sure that they are doing their safety checks on time because it's important to make sure the space is safe. The new staff member says, sounds good, thanks for letting me know. The new staff member resolved the conflict by being accommodating. All right, the last one is avoiding conflict. So this style is used when the issue or relationship is unimportant to prevent immediate conflict, especially if it's like the wrong time and place to have this discussion or emotions are starting to escalate, or when someone else could better resolve the conflict. If it's used inappropriately, the conflict may fester and escalate, and the relationship may remain superficial. So an example of this would be Sean and Brianna are having a conversation with their manager about workday issues. Brianna expresses her concern about the large amount of work being assigned with very little time for completion. When Sean is asked to share his concerns, he states that he doesn't really have any concerns and he agrees with Brianna. So he's kind of avoiding the conflict. So those are the 5 styles. And like I said, they're good for different scenarios at different times, but it's a great tool to have in your back pocket. Donald, are there any examples that you would add or anything that you'd add to this piece of it?
No, those are pretty good examples. I was expecting one with kids, but those are like accurate.
I tried. All right. On the next slide, please. So the next 2 slides are looking at, so these were 5 styles for conflict resolution, and then these are 2 different approaches to conflict resolution. So the first one, this is really going over some interaction techniques that can effectively resolve conflict. The first one is the interest-based relational approach. So some things to consider when using this approach are that the first priority is to maintain that relationship. We want to maintain our relationships through conflict, and like we're talking about, use it as a way to build the relationship or to strengthen it instead of tear it down. So separate the individual from the problem and to avoid blaming and attacking. Listen first, talk second, and clearly identify the facts associated with the conflict. That could be looking at background, root causes, individuals involved, really getting like what concretely is going on. Not what are we assuming, not what are we thinking, like really what's like the nitty-gritty of what's happening. And then explore options together and allow everyone to contribute to solving the problem and resolving the conflict. And the key with this approach is to respect individual differences and avoid only one fixed opinion, which is hard when you're in the midst of a conflict, but hopefully some of the tools in this approach will help us maintain that openness and be willing to look into other ways of thinking or doing. So the next approach is the win-win approach. So this one is really cool. This approach helps us change the conflict from that attack-defense scenario that we can get into and that we're all probably familiar with at some point in our lives to one that's focusing on cooperation. And the basis of this approach is I want to win and I want you to win too. So some of these steps could be to use this approach, discuss the underlying needs rather than only searching for solutions. Ask questions like, what's the outcome or result that you want? Or why does this seem to be the best solution? Next, create solutions that acknowledge and value individual needs rather than denying them. Recognize individual differences of perspectives and points of views, especially when they're different than your own. Be willing to modify your position in light of shared information and feelings, and attack the problem, not the person. And we'll talk about this later on, but it's so hard when you're in the moment to separate from the person versus the problem, but it is so helpful. And lastly, just maintain a perpetual level of respect for everyone involved. Okay, how are we doing? Hope we're doing all right. So this next slide is talking about what it's like to create an environment where we could use these different approaches. It's great to learn about these approaches, but if the environment that we're working in isn't able to make it feel like there's a chance for make it feel open and honest, we won't be able to effectively navigate through a conflict. So and this is also really related to trauma-informed care and having a space that's trauma-informed. So some ways that we can enhance our environment in our working atmosphere or a personal life, whatever you want, but especially at work, is first provide confidentiality, provide a private meeting space. And Donald, I might lean on you a little bit here, but for me, when I've worked with youth, especially, one thing that's been super effective with conflict resolution and de-escalation is giving everybody a choice. If I, as like the program manager, walk into the space 2 youth are in conflict and I say, hey, Bob, you look like you're having a hard time right now. I need you to come with me. That may not work so well because I'm coming in with that authoritarian approach. Instead, what I tend to do is say, hey, it looks like things are getting kind of escalated. Bob, I'd love to take a walk with you, or I'd love to talk about what's going on in the meeting space. Which would you prefer? And offer that choice about where to go. Yeah, so if you have anything to add, Donald, please just jump in at any point.
Yeah, in our spaces, we deal with a lot of adults. So for me, one of the skills that I try to utilize is, if everyone's yelling, I bring my voice down and then make sure that they can hear me at a lower tone. And then I ask them to come and talk with me so we can find out what happened. I don't come in accusing, what did you do or what did they do? I come in and ask what happened, because those wordings may help someone to explain their part versus feeling targeted behind you asking, well, what did you do? Then they put up their defense. So I just say, hey, can we talk over here? It's kind of loud in here. and I never bring my voice to their level, keep it at a mellow level, and make sure that my voice never raises above them. Usually that gives them an idea to come walk and talk with you into a quieter space. And then you can, another thing that I do is try to validate their feelings. Yeah, everyone has the right to feel a certain type of way, but unfortunately in this space, these are the steps that we're going to need to take. And then we can come up with a solution and move forward that way. So, those are just good techniques that I utilize, is validating feelings, making sure that their feelings are, are being taken in consideration. And then, bringing your voice down, because when two people are yelling in a room, especially in the middle of the eating area or something, and everyone's watching, and there's a whole scene going on, no one wants to be talked to in an authoritative manner in any form or fashion. You can't tell me what to do. We're all adults. You ain't my parent or guardian or anything of that nature. And then that's when the defense happens. So trying to provide a space for them to be able to vent and share their feelings outside of creating that audience is key. So moving them to another place and just being mindful of not raising your value to the same level of them. And those are some skills that I utilize.
Awesome. Yeah, I love that. If you can regulate yourself, you'll be able to help someone else regulate. So also looking at ways to arrange the space so it's conducive to an open conversation. And this also could be looking at using the seating arrangement to convey fairness and equality. As staff members, we all have a power differential, unfortunately, when we're working with guests in our spaces, and sometimes with each other, given like what the hierarchy may be. When we're solving a conflict, we want to come together and come from like that egalitarian, equal place to really work on a solution rather than that top-down approach in most cases. So if we're sitting like, we're not in person, I won't demonstrate. If we're sitting up above somebody and somebody has to look up at us to have that conversation, that may not be conducive to conflict resolution. So we want to look at a seating arrangement. One thing we also may want to be mindful of when it comes to space and conflict, when we're working with a population that may have high trauma or a staff team where who knows what each other's experiences are, sometimes our identities come into play. Sometimes maybe if we're working in a space with people who've experienced a lot of violence, especially if we're looking at maybe female identifying folks, we want to be really mindful that we're not blocking the exits. We will have a more productive conversation with somebody if that person has a clear path and knows where their exits are and doesn't feel cornered in that space. So that might be something to think about when it comes to situating ourselves in that space of conflict. We also want to provide resources that support problem solving, and we want to remove any objects that could be used as weapons. We want to set people up for success in all situations, whether that's staff or guests. Our jobs when we're working in housing programs are really to house folks, and we want to create every condition possible so that people can maintain housing and so that we can have successful relationships with our staff. And if that means that we want to have a space if there's an escalated conflict with no staplers that could get thrown or nothing big or heavy that could cause harm, that's a great thing to think about. Anything else that you'd add, Donald?
Yeah, also too, I'm a bigger fella as well. When I'm comfortable, I cross my arms. And sometimes that could seem abrasive or threatening towards people. So being real mindful of your body language as well. So like, standing like with your chest poked out or poked back, or you try to relax. Some people want to address the manner of the way you present yourself in those tough times. So just be mindful of that as well. So, and I cross my arms all the time, and it doesn't mean that I'm upset or any manner. It's comfortable for me, but it perceives to someone that could be traumatized by someone that every time that, when they were traumatized, that person always crossed their arms, and then that sends a signal that, I'm about to be, assaulted or hurt or whatever, or you never know what people's past trauma, but just being mindful of your body language and the way you're presenting yourself to them as well, with cross arms or scrunch face or anything of those natures too. Those could be really hard to resolve a conflict when you're doing those things and they perceive them as something else.
That was the best segue ever. Hey. It's like we planned it. So the next section is exactly that, looking at our body language. I also want to acknowledge that this is something that's really cultural. I'm a white cisgendered woman, and the way that I've learned to present my body language in the face of conflict and for de-escalation may look pretty different than it looks for other people. So in this part, I can talk about what works for me and I can speak in some generalities, but I really want to hear from everybody on this call what has worked for you and what hasn't. So real quickly, I'll talk about some general things, but then I'd love for us all to collectively, maybe for 5 or 6 minutes, add what things in terms of body language and body position have worked. So one of the cool things is that, I mean, it's not cool, but we're in social distancing programs. So personal space is huge for conflict resolution and trauma-informed care. If we're encroaching in someone else's personal space, that can feel really triggering. That can feel like you're backed into a corner. And that can make a conflict worse or make an escalation increase. So now we're all 6 feet away from each other. So maybe that's it. Maybe that's something we should continue when COVID's after in terms of shelters. I don't know, but it works for the situation that we're in. So making sure people really have that space and a lot of agency to move their body as they see fit when it comes to de-escalation and resolving an issue. Additionally, being slow and deliberate in our movements. Something that I do in shelter spaces and now kind of just transfers into my personal life because we get in the habit of it, I guess. I never come up behind anybody. If say there is somebody standing on the other side of the desk or wherever, there's a phone call and I need to get a hold of them, instead of going up behind them and tapping them on the back or calling their names, I will walk all the way around, avoiding someone's blind spot and come towards them so that they see me, they have a chance to predict where I'm going to be and that I can get their attention that way. Also, if someone appeared unconscious in a space or someone appeared like they were sleeping, if I'm in a shelter setting, I will never reach out and say, hey, are you okay? Are you okay? I'll always say, hey, can I get your attention? If I can't, then I say, hey, I'm going to touch you on the shoulder now. And then I say, okay, I'm touching you on the shoulder. And then I will touch them to see if they're conscious or what's going on. Obviously, that's different in emergency situations, but being really predictable and slow and deliberate with our body language reduces conflict, and it's a really trauma-informed skill, especially if, like what Donald's talking about, people may be coming from situations with unpredictability and violence. And like Donald mentioned, being really conscious of our stance. This is also very cultural, but for me, I tend to lean back a little bit, shoulders open, and I try to appear as non-authoritative as possible, and I want my posture not to be very rigid. Shoulder movements, if we all hold tension in our bodies, right? We might clench our fists, we might clench our shoulders, we might, we may like roll our eyes or our eyes may get bigger. Like we want to be mindful of what our own bodies do when we're feeling tense, when we're feeling stressed, and we want to moderate that and self-regulate so that we can appear calm, even if we don't feel calm. Kind of a fake it till you make it situation to improve conflict resolution. And again, when it comes to hands, this is something that I've learned, and I'm curious what everyone else has learned. And we're not in person again. I keep forgetting. But I always keep my hands open. If I'm in a shelter environment or in a different type of environment, and I'm engaging in a conversation, de-escalation, or conflict resolution, I don't keep my fists like this because there might be something in it, and so that might make someone really nervous, or that could indicate that I might swing, which I wouldn't, but that could indicate it. If I keep my hands crossed and my hands on not visible, they don't know what I could be holding. If I have my hands behind my back while I'm talking to someone, that can be really threatening. People don't know what to expect from that. So I try to err on the side of keeping my hands open like this. Cool. So those are some general things. If we have a couple minutes, if someone wants to add it to the chat or just popcorn style, things that have worked for you in terms of body language for de-escalation and conflict resolution, would love to hear about it.
Hey everybody. What's worked for me I usually take a slower approach. I've had a couple of jobs where I had to do loss prevention, stuff like that, so I'm kind of used to it. I would say if someone, I'm not sure what situations everybody deals with, but I can say for me, if someone's like escalate or yelling or all, loud or getting rowdy. I never go up to them. I never rush over to them. Excuse me. Some people would say, "Oh, you're walking slow. You're trying to, you kind of like seem like you're avoiding them." Like I am kind of. I don't want to feel like I'm rushing them, or feel like I'm attacking them. I want to approach them as calm as I can. I don't want to disrupt them or anything like that. So usually I walk either with my hands behind my back or to my side, and I keep a plain face. I don't really get too high or too low. I try to just match whatever energy they have.
Hi, this is Shayla. I try to set the tone by monitoring my breath, because an elder says you have control of your breath and no one can take your peace away from you. But sometimes I can focus on giving too much of my energy to the other person to try to fix them. And I have actually, what not so well I see on here, what didn't work, I've actually drained myself a lot by trying to like magically pass my calmness on to somebody else. So really just, I like what was just said about accepting where that person is, but also little things like just turning to the side and letting all that stuff flow past me, but I'm still right there with them. Maybe not making eye contact. Some people love it, some people hate it. So just kind of knowing that. Thanks, guys.
That's great. Thank you. Does anyone else want to share before we move on?
One thing we were taught in search and rescue when approaching someone, especially if they're laying down, it's far less, or it's more trauma informed to touch their foot than their shoulder, especially that way if they are going to react, then they have, farther to go to get to you.
That's great. That's really helpful. If anyone else has anything that comes to mind, feel free to add it to the chat. It's awesome. Hopefully we'll be able to go back and pick out some of these to put them in a document at the end. Awesome. Move on to the next slide. All right, so trauma-informed care. We'll touch on this really briefly because there will be other points in this training to really dive into what this means. Super simply, trauma-informed care, conflict resolution, super related to each other. The goal with trauma-informed care, especially in shelter programs, is to create safe havens free from traumatic dynamics that allow guests time and space to heal and build resiliency. There's nothing that we as staff can do that will fix, cure, or, magically create that magical solution for any of our guests and for ourselves. What we can do is really focus on making sure the space that our program is in and the space that we occupy as staff and as people are as free from traumatic dynamics as possible, to allow people that opportunity to build on their own sense of resiliency and their own strengths. So using strong conflict resolution skills are super key to making our shelter programs trauma-informed spaces where people can do that work. Also touching briefly on compassion fatigue, which is, vicarious trauma or secondary trauma. Conflict is exhausting. It's really hard on the brain and the mind and the body. So just touching on this in the very briefest way, it's important to recognize what our edges and burnout level are as staff before we step into a conflict situation. We need to use good coping skills and good judgment to navigate our roles in conflict resolution when we do that self-inventory and we're able to say, okay, I know some of my triggers, some of my edges are this. Right now I'm a 7 on the burnout scale. I may do something that I don't mean to do because I'm burned out. How can I mitigate this? So edges and triggers, we all have different life experiences and things affect us in different ways. It's important to recognize what situations, behaviors, words, actions are extra challenging for you when you're at work. This also includes conscious and unconscious bias work. If we can learn to recognize what our triggers and sensitive areas are, we'll be more prepared to handle that when we come up against them in the workplace. It helps us anticipate what to expect. So some things that we can do when we recognize that this is something's coming up for us, we've hit one of our edges or we're about to. It may include asking a team member to step in for you. It may include things like Shayla was talking about, using mindful breathing and some centering and grounding techniques, taking space from the situation as well. That's always an option. If we as staff feel like we'll make a conflict worse, or we're interacting with each other and we feel like we're not in the space where we can really handle this, we get to set that boundary and take a little bit of space, because it's best to have someone else on our team come in to handle it who may be more equipped at that time. So yeah, we're better at conflict resolution and trauma-informed care when we're aware of what our edges are and where we're at with our burnout.
And real quick, I just wanted to call out the chat. Thank you so much for everybody that's participating. Heidi mentioned, I know it's harder to argue if one person stays in a monotone voice. If I can maintain that tone, normally people will calm down and able to communicate what is going on. And then Patricia mentioned, in my work as a corrections technician, I was able to learn great conflict resolution and de-escalation. Thank you, Mia. And I'll send it forward. Double screen, where's my mouse? I'm coming. It's good. I got this. Okay.
Cool. Well, again, like trauma-informed care, this will be covered in more in depth later on and in its own specific type of training. Really looking, strength-based approach emphasizes saying that the person is not the problem is the problem. It really, using this approach helps us depersonalize our stuff from that moment and really focus on what's at hand and what we need to do to figure it out. It's easy during a conflict to ask what's wrong with this person, but to be more successful in conflict resolution, we need to ask ourselves what's right with this person before we engage in that solution. when we look at the weaknesses and deficits and the frustrations and those negative things which come first to mind when we're in a conflict, when we engage in resolution, we tend to do those narrow, specific solutions that aren't really looking at what's at the deeper root of the conflict. So they're more temporary solutions that could, like we've talked about prior, result in frustrations, reoccurring issues, and resentment.
Mia, do y'all all want to watch this again? I think most of us have watched this. We can move forward for the sake of time. Okay, cool. It'll be a part of the slide deck. Thank you.
But yes, empathetic listening is super important. We'll have more information on that later. Really looking at just a few key points for empathetic listening. Active listening is included in this in ways. So being present and authentic, restating and validating what people are saying, and using silence for reflection. Taking a quiet moment to gather our thoughts is really important. And really asking, like we've talked about, what do you need and want? How is it affecting you? And what can we do now to move forward? So next are some healthy conversation tips. These are great. So when we're in these situations, some things that we can do that can be helpful. We want to reflect back what is being said, and we want to use the person's words, not our own words. For example, someone might say, excuse my language, or whatever, it's not that bad of language. Someone might be like, I'm super pissed off right now. That was super shitty. We don't want to say, wow, it sounds like you're a little bit frustrated, right? Like that doesn't really capture what's happening, and that person could perceive that as patronizing in some ways. Instead, we want to say either, wow, it sounds like you are really upset. It sounds like you're really angry, or it sounds like you're pissed. I'm sorry that's happening. What can we do? What do you want to talk? What do you want to talk about? What can we do? So we want to begin where they are and not where we want them to be. We want to address the situation from the point that people think the conflict is in, not where we perceive it to be. We want to be curious and open to what the person's trying to say. We want to notice what they are saying and what they're not saying. We also want to emotionally relate to how they are feeling, and we want to nurture that relationship. Again, this is really about relationship building. So additionally, we want to be honest and authentic. It's okay to notice how you're feeling. I know, like personally for me, I have a really hard time talking about how I feel in situations like this. I don't mean that we should input how we feel and detract from what's going on, but being authentic sometimes about the impact that it's having on you. it's okay to be honest, and that could really help the moment. Take responsibility. Take responsibility for our part or your part in the conflict or misunderstanding. If we want someone else to do that, we have to be able to do it too. Understand how the past affects current relationships, and stay with the process and the relationship.
This is a video. I will make sure that this is turned up and we will start. Is it okay, Mia? Can I just push play and then you can follow up?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
For cultural humility, the goal is to lower your own sense of self-importance, to be open to receive other people and other people's way of life, to be present, to be listening, to be open, to see. We are all equals and we each have skills to share. You're talking about developing a partnership. I have something to give and you have something to give. And what are we going to create from that? It's not coming in as if you have all of the answers because you're at the university. And I have none of the answers because I am from a minority community. You have to be relaxed, you have to be humble, you have to come not to a lower level, but to a level that people can understand what you're saying. They can understand that you want to be there. Body language. Body language is such a thing. If you're not comfortable, then you need to go into a community with people that are comfortable so you can see how they act, what type of clothes they wear, how they speak to people. Whether you're a professor or whether you're a student or a staff person or whatever your station is, there may be this kind of sense, within our egos that we need to approach communities that we're working with a sense of knowing everything, of being the teacher. And in cultural humility, it's okay to not know, and it's okay to ask a question. It doesn't mean that you're not intelligent. It just means that you may not know something. So I think it's just important to approach folks who may have different social identities in that way, with a sense of openness, with a sense of listening and really seeing, listening to understand instead of listening to talk and teach, and occupying the space of being a true learner. Please remember that we are all equals and we each have skills to share. So even though we may not have all of the book knowledge that a university student has, we still have a lot of knowledge and skills, and we're still moving forward. And we need assistance with moving forward. And there's probably a lot that university students can learn from us too.
I know that was catered to university students, but I think the message is transferable. Mia, you want to chime in?
Sure, absolutely. A few thoughts. I really enjoyed that video. I think so there's a quote that says, if we only address individual trauma, we're missing the primary conditions creating it. And that's referring to institutional traumas, systemic traumas, intergenerational traumas. And I think the same applies for conflict. If we're only addressing the individual conflict that we're in, and we're not considering what the systemic and what the intergenerational and passed down traumas are, or factors are that contribute to that conflict, we won't be able to truly address it. So using that lens of cultural humility, especially like with someone with my social locations, that I will not be effective being a part of conflict resolution if I'm not coming in through that lens. So cultural humility, again, is that commitment to active engagement and critical self-reflection. And some ways that I may practice this when I'm in a workplace setting or just in my daily life. Before engaging in a conflict, I ask myself, how could my assumptions, stereotypes, and biases be influencing my reaction to the situation? And how may those things be influencing how this conflict is coming up or how someone's experiencing it? All right, so we are almost at the end. This is hallmarks of good conflict resolution. These are just some questions to ask ourselves that help us make sure that what we're doing in that moment and afterward are effective. So, number one, is the resolution fair? Did we come to a fair conclusion that works for everyone to the best of our ability? Does everyone feel the resolution is reasonable? Maybe we created a resolution that requires a really crazy amount of work for one person. Is that reasonable to ask that person to do, or can we figure out how to share that burden? Does everyone have a stake in the resolution? Is everyone bought in? Does the resolution have a beginning and an end date? When we resolve a conflict, we say, yeah, we'll look into that. That doesn't do very much for people. If we say, okay, we'll look into that and we'll have an answer for you by next Tuesday. That's a lot more, that's something that people could latch onto and buy into. Are the roles and responsibilities for the resolution follow through clearly defined? Does everyone know what they're supposed to do? Have support and resources for the resolution been identified? Again, if we leave it arbitrary, we could be doing more in that situation to truly get at the heart of that conflict and help take steps to make sure it's not happening again. And what are the measures of successful resolution? And this could look different depending on what your team is like, what the goals of the program are like, et cetera, et cetera. Okay, I'm not great at Jamboard situations, so you may want to lead this, Alexandra.
Okay. Real quick, I know time check, we're at 2:45, so feel free to tap out and take a break because this is pretty much it. This is a Jamboard. I shared it with everybody. I'm pretty sure if you don't have access, then please let me know. But I put the Jamboard in the chat. And for this is you can follow this link and then you can use the like kind of little sticky notes. Once you get in there, you can use the like little tools on the side to either write something or type something on a sticky note. Yeah, I think I should have gave approval. Can folks access the Jamboard?
I cannot. I requested access though.
Okay, so maybe that's not going to work, but the whole purpose of, because I see that there's a couple people that may have been denied, but I swear I shared this morning. But with that being said, the purpose of this exercise was going to be for us to share like what can be our commitment to conflict resolution based on the strategies that Mia discussed and Donald's advice, like what's a tool that we will commit to using. That's pretty much what I was going to have us like kind of share as an activity. I'm sorry it didn't work. However, I will fix the Jamboard for tomorrow's activities and we'll be good. With that being said, would anybody, we're on break. Mia, do you just want to wrap up with any final thoughts and then we can just go to break and then we can prepare for Ria?
Sure. Basically, thank you all for going through that with me. I really appreciated the time and the contributions. I hope some of this is helpful. If anybody wants to add what their commitment might be or what their key takeaway from that section or what like one thing that they want to work on or that they want to contribute to the shared knowledge for everyone, I'll add that to a Google Doc that we can send out later. If you want to just put it in the chat or whatever, or if you don't want to, that's cool too. Thank you.
Thank you, Mia. This was amazing, and I appreciate you so much. I am going to scroll. I'm going to stop sharing because Ria is going to share her own slide deck, and we will reconvene at 3 o'clock. Does that sound like a plan, folks? And I apologize about the Jamboard, but I will fix that. Thank you. That was a sudden end, but that worked. Hi, everyone. We are on to our section 3 of our de-escalation workshop, day 1. And we have Ria here, Graves, who will be leading us in our racial justice section. Ria, do you want to take over?
Yeah, I can. I might need some help later on to discover the breakout function because I don't know how that works.
Okay, cool.
But I'll let you know when it's time. Anyways, hi everyone. It's nice to see some of you and some old faces and some new faces. Welcome. So I am Ria Graves. I'm the training specialist for the Joint Office of Homeless Services. I do a lot of work around AE, and I'm curious, has anyone heard of AE/assertive engagement? Anybody know? Some head nods. Mia, is that a thumbs up? You do? Just from you? Okay, Jordana is an expert now, right? Okay, cool. So, assertive engagement / AE, I call it AE for short. I'm going to throw that acronym around a lot. So correct me if you're like, what is AE again? But assertive engagement uses a lot, or is modeled heavily after popular education models. And popular education, it's not what it sounds. It's not like, pop music and reality TV show. It's actually an active learning process that raises social awareness and is seeking to stimulate critical and creative thinking and leads to action for social change. So it's influenced by the concept that all of us in this space have expertise and valuable lived experience to share. And all of us play dual roles here. So we're each and every one of us, both the trainee and the trainer. So me, Alexandra, Mia, any of the other facilitators you saw, we're not the experts. We just have information to offer you. And each training, we learn from you all and you learn from each other. And so we just facilitate this process through activities and intentional relationship building. And that's what I'm seeking to do here with our space together. Does that kind of make sense what our goal is today? I know that you don't know much about the content, but this is the how we're going to do it. Okay. And feel free to jump in at any time in the chat box or unmute yourself or raise your hand. I'm not really familiar with Google very much. So if I miss a hand, please poke me because questions are always welcome and always appreciated, and so are comments. So let's jump in. Oops, sorry. And I'm also the 2-monitor thing. Those of you that had the training last time, I still have not figured this out, y'all. Sometimes my screens are bleeding over to the other. Okay, so what is AE? I told you it was popular education modeled, which is true, but what is it? So here is what some of our prior participants in AE classes have said about AE. And I'm gonna ask somebody to volunteer reading the first bubble. Anybody mind reading that?
I can read it.
Okay, thank you.
It challenges paternalistic service, social service models which treat work with clients as charity or as a way of modeling people into a definition of self-reliant or productive that tends to match the goals of the social service agency more than the goals of the people being helped.
Thank you for reading that. Anyone want to read bubble 2?
I can read.
Thank you.
A&E is an effective relationship building and case management approach that allows us to serve our clients better because it puts them in the driver's seat.
Thank you so much for reading that, you two. So that's what folks have said about what AE is and what it does. And if you're like, I'm still not getting it, don't trust me. You're not supposed to get it on the first try. There's no like bullet point definition for AE, but it is a way that we do a work, a lens that we bring to this work. So AE in comparison with other models. So I don't know if some of you are probably familiar with this. They're very outdated. The concept of the charity model, right? It is built into a lot of the institutions that we work for in the fabric of social services in our country. And it's built on this notion that people that need services are fundamentally flawed or defective and they need to be fixed. So if you're thinking, Ria, that sounds really yucky, it does. And you should be thinking that. This is not by any means something you should be thinking, but this is and was in the theoretical concepts for social services as they were founded in our country. So these are some of the elements of what these hierarchical and more punitive models of charity models, charity services exist, and inflexible appointment. So the idea that if you were 2 minutes late for an appointment, you can't have services. You got to go. Sorry, we can't help you. Low compliance equals low service. So folks that are not meeting the marks or the metrics that are assigned to them are not going to get the services that they need /want. People who are not patient or polite or excluded or punished. It's a way of saying, well, if you want services, you must look a certain way. You must act a certain way. You must be grateful. After all, you're here because, you need help and we're here to help you. And it's very much not centered on the person. It's centered on how well they can perform a certain image that they're looking for. And those people are deemed worthy of services. And the inability to follow through is interpreted as a sign of low motivation. So a lot of times folks are experiencing lots of challenges when they're in crisis, right? And so these models don't really make space for that. They say if you're not able to meet the marks, you're out. There's somebody else that needs help and we got to go, right? So these models, assertive engagement is in direct contrast to. We don't want to uphold any of this. And we know that we work in institutions that sometimes have rigidity in their structures and doesn't allow for a lot of flexibility. But as much as we can, we're trying to make it about the folks that need services, the folks that need help, and trying to center wherever they see themselves as the next steps in their lives and supporting them in getting there. So assertive engagement is about meeting people where they are, wherever they are, sometimes literally. If it means driving to do a home visit, that's what it means. Understanding why people are struggling, understanding what barriers and what challenges people are actually experiencing, not thinking you know, but trying to put yourself in someone else's shoes and experiencing what they are experiencing on the daily and why they might have trouble meeting some of these standards that we think are just super easy to do. And by we, I mean the institutions that we work for sometimes feel this way because we work for government and there are rules. We know that. I'm not saying rules out the window. Just saying we have to recognize people in those rules too, right? So the emphasis of identifying, my screen's emphasis on people identifying their own goals, which is huge. So in these punitive hierarchical models, a lot of times folks were not allowed to identify their own goals. They weren't allowed to be like, well, I really think I need this and this is where I see myself. It was about, well, you know what, this is what's wrong and this is what you're going to do to fix it. And it wasn't collaborative. It wasn't a co-creative process, right? It was just prescribed to them. And so assertive engagement is seeking to do something different and making sure that we're focusing the client's needs and their wants and their vision of where they see themselves going next. And we're allowed to support the journey, not prescribe the journey. So yeah, the belief, and then I think the bottom one is the most important, the belief in the inherent abilities of people. A lot of times these charity models focus on people as being a problem in themselves and not having strengths and capabilities on their own. And so what assertive engagement does is it recognizes, yeah, folks have challenges, right? We all have challenges that we're working through on a daily, and yet you are here and you remain resilient because of the strengths you have. And so even though other people might not see that, I see that in you, right? And we're going to use those strengths to build upon each other and get you to wherever your next step is, right? So what is your feedback on that? How do we feel about these punitive hierarchical models in contrast to assertive engagement? I know it's a lot, so process as you need.
I don't think I need to understand why another person struggles. That's not my thing. I don't need to understand. I can just relate to them as one person to another, just being like, I am with you.
Yep.
So I don't pretend to understand and be all super compassionate. Like, I'm just gonna meet you where you are, and that's all I can do.
I get it. Thank you. Any other feedback?
Priya, I see Mia's hand is raised.
Oh, Mia?
Sorry, that's an accident. I'm bad at that feature.
It's okay.
I really like the notion of them identifying their own goals. It kind of seems like giving somebody their own agency like that is like so much more motivation than just like setting them down a path that they might not understand why they need to be on.
Yep. And Adam, do you mean that feels so much better for the staff that are working with clients, or it feels so much better for the clients, or both?
I think both. I think it's better for the client, and then as you see them kind of enacting their own vision for themselves, I think that's probably more satisfying for the staff as well.
Yep. So better all around.
Yeah.
Thank you. Any other feedback about these two models?
I think with the assertive engagement, meeting people where they are is like really important, because when I've been teaching for about 30 years, and the one thing that I have learned is that there's always symptoms to a greater problem or greater conflict. So I really learned to discern the symptoms from the actual issue across the board, because I feel like that's more important, because when you start, picking at just the symptoms, you never really get to the problem because you're so focused on the aspects of like what's being promoted versus like what the promotion is. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. Because if you just look at the symptoms, you're not identifying the root causes. You're not identifying the real actual issue that they need help like getting resolved, right?
Yeah, I think the symptoms make it easier to deflect and to get upset.
Yeah,
Or
they
not
do.
the conclusion.
And they detract from the more important situation at hand, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Thank you for your feedback, Patricia. Any other comments? Oh, wait, I thought I missed one in the chat box. Sorry. Shayla said, promoting autonomy is more authentic and promising of long-term success. Yes, like if someone gets the agency to really see themselves in their next steps and you're along supporting their journey, imagine how much more motivated they're going to be in fulfilling that, right? Because they saw it. They saw where their end game is. You're just there to support them. And I think that does feel better, like Adam was saying, for both. So I'm not saying that these punitive hierarchical models like the charity model didn't have their place. I mean, certainly there are a lot of great people in social services that do a lot of great work, and we're not saying that that's not true. We're just saying that the way that we do our work is really important, and the way we think about our clients and work with our clients is really important too. So it's kind of something that I feel like hits us home is the problem isn't us, the problem is a society that makes us the problem. So if we can stop and reframe the way that we think about the people we're working with, either as coworkers or either as clients, I feel like the end result is that we're going to have a lot more compassionate workforce, and we're going to be able to see the vision that others have for themselves, which is really, really an empowering process. But we're talking about discord, we're talking about conflict, and we're going to get to that in a minute. But before we do that, I want to lay just a little bit of groundwork. When we talk about at AE, we use the 3 sets of AE to set a framework for how we do this work. The first is the heart set, and it's how we feel about the people and treat the people we work with. And I heard Mackenzie when she's like, you know what, I don't have to understand how everybody is struggling. I can still have compassion for them as a human being and support them where they are. And that's what that means to me. I totally respect that. And the way that we view the people that we're working with is important, because the way that we view people it inevitably shapes the way we interact with folks, right? If you have a hesitation about someone, if you don't trust someone, if you're not thinking someone is deserving of services, like some of these other models would say, then you're going to inevitably interact with them differently than you would if you believe that they were really powerful, capable, competent individuals who really deserve all the help there is to give and really deserve to get to their next step. Like, you're going to treat them better because of the way you think about those people. And so, like, when you're thinking about your coworkers, either on a bad day or a good day, or you're thinking about clients, even your most challenging client, just try to think about that in terms of what that means for them and their experience, and how you're going to interact with them and support them is going to be based on how you think about them inside. So it's before you even say anything, the way you think about people really does matter. Your mindset is how we think about the people we work with. And that's about so for instance, empathy, right? The idea that walking in somebody else's shoes can lend you more expertise to the daily struggle that they're living through and help you to be able to better support them on their journey. So if you've never taken the time to stand in someone's shoes and understand where their experiences have led them and what they've experienced on a daily, you're not going to be really able to help them on their journey because you haven't really lived how they lived. And I'm not saying that you have to like experience everything, but it's important to have that context, right? And that's going to be more important as we do some of our role play activities later. Skill set is how we do our work. So it's the nuts and bolts of how we do our work. It's the toolbox, for lack of a better word. And the toolbox, sorry. It's like, my screen just did a flash thing. The toolbox is like reflections, open-ended questions, and the concept of dancing with discord. Reflections is when we use folks' words and repeat them back to them to basically confirm that we heard them correctly, that we heard what their problem is, that we heard what their solutions is that they've already come to, that we heard what they need. open-ended questions is a way of helping folks find out what their next step is. It's not saying, oh, I know what your next step is going to be. It's saying, well, have you thought about this? And what do you think about that? And seeing what happens. So it truly is, we're not prescribing anything. We're not saying that we know best. We're just really being a witness to the journey, right? And that can be really easy to say and really challenging to do. And I recognize that, but I promise you this will get a lot more clearer once we go through these things. Any questions about the heart set, mindset, and skill set? I know I kind of breezed through this because I know we have like a limited amount of time. Okay, no glaring questions about that. If something else comes up, feel free to pop up. Would somebody mind reading this quote for me?
Sure, I can. Healthy conflict is love tapping fear on the shoulder, saying, "It's okay, I got this."
Parker. Priya Parker wrote a book, and I will actually give Alexander the link so that you can check it out. It's about the art of gathering, and it focuses on connection and discord and conflict and how to do that in a healthy way, and how to set yourself up internally and externally to do that. And so it's a really powerful book if you ever have time to read it. But I love this quote and the visual, and I'm just curious, what's jumping out at you when you hear that quote? No thoughts?
I got one.
Okay.
It's just basically, I feel like when I hear this and when I look at it and read it, it's just all different thoughts and emotions all in one. You know, it's like saying, no matter how bad the situation is, you know, like I'll still be good. You know, life is gonna be great. You know, yeah, just gotta keep moving forward with all the negativity. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, I hear you, Brian. So like, the idea that like, yeah, this might be kind of hard, right? But I'm gonna make it because I have all these things to lean on, all these wonderful skills and strengths that I have already. And I know that in the end of the day, my compassion for this other human being is gonna come through, and we're gonna get to where we gotta go. You know, is that kind of what I'm hearing?
Yeah, especially with like all like this shelter work. I mean, there's been a lot of situations where I'm like, oh, geez, I don't know if this is gonna be okay, or you know, like if my life is in danger or anything like that. But in reality, I'm like, yo, I'm good. You know?
Yep. No, I hear you. And you guys are doing hard work, really hard work. And so sometimes it is comforting just to think about like, yeah, I got this. We got this, right? And so today, hopefully when you leave this training, you'll have a few more tools in your toolbox on how you can navigate difficult situations. But let's keep this in mind as the visual. It's okay, I got this. And remind yourself that fear is just that, right? Sometimes it's scary, and also you got this.
I feel like it also says you can't, you know, receive if you don't give. You know what I'm saying? So if you hold
Yep.
everything so close, then you can't get like help or acknowledgement or receive, you know, really honestly gifts, you know, to your overall process, because you haven't like really put yourself out there to receive those. And yeah, it's going to be scary because you might not really like the responses sometimes, but not everything is comfortable.
Exactly. And I think, Patricia, you really nailed it. Like the idea that sometimes conflict is scary and uncomfortable for a lot of people. Totally get that. This is not an easy thing to do, right? And also the basis of engaging with folks with compassion, with empathy, and with some other tools we're going to talk about today is going to make it a lot more easy for you. And also it's not going to be easy because it's conflict, right? It's something that we're not trained to think is comfortable or is something that we want to lean into.
Exactly.
Yep. So let's talk a little bit about empathy. I know you guys probably know what this is, but what do you think of when you hear empathy? This is that popular education flaring up. I want to hear from y'all. Maybe we don't know what empathy is. That's okay too.
I feel like we have to walk in other people's shoes. I know I keep talking, sorry. We have to walk in other people's shoes or imagine what it would be like. You know what I'm saying? Like you don't have to own somebody's position, but you have to be compassionate about what being in their position actually means. So, you know, coming for somebody versus interacting with somebody is two different things.
Mhm.
And I just think it's really important to know that, it could happen to anybody, including yourself. So how we respond to it is like really super important, because how we respond to people is how we would hopefully want responses to be given to us.
Exactly. And please do not apologize for talking too much. That's not a thing, I assure you. These trainings are meant for us to engage and learn from each other. So I really appreciate your comments. And you're absolutely right. Putting yourself in somebody else's shoes and engaging with them like that. Any other comments about empathy?
I have a comment on the previous slide.
Yeah.
About love and fear. I think what it points out to me anyway is that if we all just love each other and we show love, that we can overcome anything. If we just show each other love, ultimately that's all it takes, is just to be kind, show love, and we can get through it.
Yep. I love the way you phrase that. Love it's not actually here, but it is here. Like, it's all in this slide, but it's not listed anywhere, right? But that's what we see. And so, well, actually it is there. Sorry. Healthy conflict is love, tapping fear on the shoulder. Sorry, I missed that word. So it is there. It's not in the bubbles on the side. But it's an empowering way to look at conflict that way, right? Is everything is going to be happy if we just sprinkle a little love on it, which is, of course, nice to say and also harder to do in the moment when someone is saying something that's really hurtful. Shayla, did you have your hand raised?
Yeah, thank you. I was reflecting on, like, when somebody shares what's going on for them, it's actually a privilege. Even, if we have a power dynamic and we're expecting them to let us know what's going on, so maybe we could keep the space safe, whether it's that dynamic or it's just like a friend, or oftentimes I hear, in class and formal settings too, people sharing their experience, or like speaking to like racial inequity or something like that. I've seen a lot of people just not say anything. And I think maybe it's because they don't know what to say, but some acknowledgement is helpful, and also, or maybe not even saying like, I understand completely, but like, wow, I hear you. Thank you for sharing. And then kind of going from there, but some sort of acknowledgement and just feeling it like a privilege is really helpful to me, because it's a connection, of share.
That's such a wonderful way of looking at that, and thank you for sharing that. It definitely, there is a feeling of when someone tells you something really hard, you almost want to do something about it. You're right? But it's the act of them actually sharing that with you is the act itself. There is nothing else needed, right? They're not asking you to do anything, but just to witness, this is really hard. I'm struggling right now. And just being there and being that safe person is enough. And also acknowledging that real is better than perfect. We are going to mess up. We're going to cause harm unintentionally, and that's okay. We just have to go into it not thinking that like, oh, anything I do could cause harm, and be so like caught up in that overthinking mode that we're not actually doing anything, right? We're all going to make mistakes, and we have to normalize that. Heidi, I'm sorry, I missed the response. Did you want to comment?
I was just saying that I liked what Sheila had to say.
Oh, great.
And
yes, no, I liked it too. Did you have any other thing to say about what Sheila said?
No.
Okay. Thank you for sharing. I saw another hand go up. I don't know where it is. Maybe I imagined it. Okay. Well, feel free to unmute if anyone has anything else to say, or type in the chat box. I apologize. I'm not great at Google, so I'm not seeing the hands all the time. Okay. So a little bit about empathy and the way we look at empathy in AE. So we look at empathy. I'm sorry. I got kind of upsetting text just now about a family member that's in the hospital. And so I apologize that I am really not all the way present. And I apologize that I'm just being transparent. I'm getting a little lost.
No apologies needed. No apologies needed.
Thank you. I appreciate you all. Okay, I'm gonna retrack. Okay, so I was talking with a coworker about a week ago about empathy, and that we decided that we saw empathy as listening to understand someone else and showing that person that you understand. And so when we think about sympathy, which is not empathy, we think about it as focused on the listener or how you feel listening to someone, right? I feel sorry you're hurt. I feel angry that that happened to you. It's about you, right? You're centering you and your feelings. Empathy is more about understanding the other person's experience and holding space for their feelings rather than centering your own. So it's about putting yourself, literally, like Patricia was saying, in someone else's shoes, imagining what they must be feeling and why they must be reacting the way they are, like all the things that they're telling you, processing that as if you were that person and you were experiencing that, even if you never experienced it before, and choosing your actions based off that, right? So empathy coupled with compassion can motivate the desire to act towards alleviating the suffering you've witnessed. And it's an incredibly powerful tool in change work. So centering the person needs and decentering the needs of yourself as the listener or the witness. Does that make sense to folks? Do we kind of understand that difference between sympathy and empathy? I can't see everyone's faces. Okay. So we're kind of feeling like we know that. Okay, I knew you guys were already probably pros, but you know.
I feel like empathy is more like relatable, and sympathy is more pity.
Yes.
Is that, I mean, kind of something like that?
Yeah, sympathy, I'm not saying it doesn't have its place. Of course, we've all felt sympathy, right? But empathy is really based on that connection with the other person, because you really do have to try to experience for yourself what that person must be going through, right? And sympathy is like, oh, I feel sorry for you. I'm feeling really angry for you, which isn't really helpful, to be honest.
Right.
Like, when's the last time you were going through a tough situation and somebody was like, wow, I feel really sorry for you. And we're like, thanks. Who does that, right? Jordana, did you have a hand up?
Yeah, I do. I have a bunch of training in nonviolent communication, and I know that Marshall Rosenberg, who sort of pushed that along, has like a pretty specific definition or set of definitions around empathy. What I come back to is that it's based on like universal needs and universal feelings, and the like things that we all experience at some point in our lives that we can resonate with. So if someone tells me like they feel scared, like I know what that feels like in my body. It kind of, not to like devalue in any way the context or the specifics, or that you can't know exactly how someone feels because of that context, but we all know what it feels like to be like angry or sad or tired or, you know, any of those. So I come back to that place of like, I know what it feels like for me when I feel and like enter feeling word that someone else has used. And like supporting people via empathy by like asking, and it can feel vulnerable, but it usually lands really well. You're like, oh, like I hear you saying this, like, are you feeling alone right now? And helping name that. And there's a bunch of, I could geek out on like the prefrontal cortex and how that like brings it back online when we hear those words. But I think that Marshall Rosenberg's view of empathy is pretty awesome, relating to that universal experience.
I love that. Thank you so much for sharing, Jordana. You see, this is why I love AE, is that we're all learning from each other all the time. And you're exactly right. We've all experienced really challenging emotions, and it's like tapping into that part of yourself that knows that in order to support someone. I'm sorry, I saw some other hands go up. I'm gonna trust that you guys know who was first. Is that bad? Because I want to hear from everyone. Okay, let me see if I can see. Jonathan, did you raise your hand? Okay, we'll come back to it if you have a comment. And then I had a comment in the chat. Hallie, empathy is listening to understand how the person feels without mentally jumping ahead. Okay, great. To offer a solution. Listening to understand rather than respond, holding space and validating the feelings often gives people the opportunity to realize what it is they need and to have their needs met themselves. Yes, I think you've taken a sneak peek at some of my slides before, because absolutely true, all of that. Okay, Jonathan, if you had a comment, feel free to jump in anywhere. But yes, you guys know empathy. You definitely know empathy. Feeling or understanding what someone else is feeling. Compassion is empathy in action. So yeah, those. Okay, so we know the empathy part, and we know why that's important, because how is more important than what. How we do our work is way more important than what we do. And the most important skill set we have is listening with our ears, our eyes, our minds, and hearts. And so that's what I want to focus on grounding y'all in today when we're talking about discord and conflict. Okay, so reflections. This is part of the how we do our work, right? So it's a way of phrasing information and words. So words, we say back a few of the words the client used. So if a client says, I'm really angry, my application got denied. You say something like, I'm hearing you're really upset about the application denial. How can I support you with this? Let's talk about what we can do next. Meaning, restating the meaning of a client's words with different words. So this one can be a little tricky because you're taking a little bit of a risk, right? You're inferring meaning of words used. So if someone says, you don't serve Black people at this organization, you say back, I'm hearing that you don't think our agency does a good job serving your community, right? See that reframe, that reflection, you're hearing what they're saying and you're trying to infer where they're coming from in a ways to help push the conversation along, to be constructive, to be productive. Does that make sense? Okay, I'm gonna assume that generally it makes sense. Emotions, state what the client is feeling. Sometimes folks are not gonna say what they're feeling because they actually don't know what they're feeling in that moment. They're just reacting, right? And that's how it is when you're in crisis. That's how it is when you're experiencing trauma and responding to trauma. So know that sometimes you're going to recognize those emotions before the client themselves does. And it's okay to acknowledge it, but acknowledge it in a supportive way. If someone comes to you and says, my application got denied, what am I supposed to do now? I'm hearing you're feeling anxious about your application denial. Do you want to talk about next steps? Do you want to talk about what other resources are available? Does that kind of make sense, the way that we offer reflections and what that looks like in practice? You will have a chance to practice these. Okay, Tracy, thumbs up, thank you. Okay, we're going to speed along because I know we want to get to the activities. Okay, oh, Ari, did you have a question?
Kind of, yeah. So my question was about restating. I feel like in some circumstances, restating someone's affirmation can feel a little wooden. You know, like when you're on, like when you call a customer service line and you express what's frustrating you and they're just repeating it back to you in different words. Sometimes it feels like it's like a wooden restatement of what you just said, instead of like I can understand how frustrating that is. Let's see what we can do to mitigate, or to let's see what we can do, what steps we can take together to get around this blockage or what's frustrating you.
Yep. Thank you so much for highlighting that. You're absolutely right. Reflections can sound really robotic and kind of monotonous if you're not making them your own, right? They're just a framework in how we respond. I'm not saying don't take notes on these exact statements, but these are examples, right, to think through. The idea of using someone else's words and restating them to help bring about clarity, that's all good and fine. But if you're doing it like you're reading it from a script, it's not going to come off as natural. You have to do it in the way that you would normally engage in that. So thank you for acknowledging that, Ari, because that is something that can happen. I know I've used AE on my husband, and sometimes I'm not seamless. And sometimes he's like, you're AEing me, aren't you? And I'm like, okay, well, I was just trying to reflect back. You're AEing me, you know? So it means that I'm sounding a little wooden, I'm sounding a little robotic, and I need to, you know, reconnect with my words before I share them. Any other comments about that and reflections? I promise you we'll have time to practice these in groups. Okay. All right, summary is another way that we use reflections to help move a conversation along. So take a pause and summarize. So what summaries help with is it re-engages worn out clients. Sometimes when you're de-escalating a situation, it can take a long time, y'all. I'm just gonna say, sometimes it's not 5 minute, you know, one and done situation. okay? Sometimes it takes a good hour and a half. And sometimes throughout the course of all this narrative, all this storytelling, the content can get lost or derailed, right? And you need a way of pushing it back on track. And so summaries help that. So during a long conversation, I can tell you, when I first started the Joint Office of Homeless Services, I was working at the front desk. And there was a lady that that had called the office, and I picked up and did my little greeting, right? And she started in, right, just nonstop for like 3.5 minutes straight. I swear to you, she did not breathe. And I was like, how is this lady keeping on? I can't say anything. Like she's just going, right? And so I wait for like a moment and a moment of like just pause or inflection in her tone. And I'm like, ma'am, I just want to make sure that I have this right. Are you saying that your brother-in-law got laid off and you're worried about your brother-in-law and your sister and being able to afford rent and you're looking at resources for them? And she's like, yes, that's exactly what I need. But I was taking notes during the whole time she was talking. And I was like, I don't know when I can jump in. And sometimes that's just a good way to check in and make sure, like, am I hearing you right? It slows down runaway clients, like the call that I got at the front desk. It allows you to transition the conversation or wrap up. So it allows me to move forward, right? Sometimes she's telling me all the narrative, telling all the context, and I'm like, okay, great. So I can tell you what we can do, and I can tell you what other resources are available. And I wouldn't have been able to do that if I hadn't stopped, gave her the summary, and let it push on. And it lets the client know, more importantly, that you're really listening. Oftentimes, hearing summaries, hearing reflections are just a way of saying, I heard you, I see you, and I heard you, and I'm hearing you because I'm sharing back what you've said, right? And for a lot of folks, that could be the first time all day that they felt heard. And so it can be really powerful. So I know it's seemingly simple, and it's hard to do when you're in a busy, fast-paced working environment and lots of things are going on. But just try to be grounded and remember those things when we're engaging in this Discord work. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about bias. Would somebody mind reading the 3 bullet points under bias? What bias? What is it?
Bias is a disproportionate weight in favor of or against an idea or thing. Biases can be innate or learned. People may develop biases for or against an individual, a group, or a belief.
Thanks, Adam. Does that like work with our concepts of bias? Does anyone feel like, nah, that's not how I understand bias? Way off, or does that feel like it kind of does? Okay, I'm seeing some head nods. Innate bias? Yeah. So the concept of bias is really connected to this concept of judgment, right? We all as human beings were born to judge. Literally, we were. Okay, right out of the womb, we are judging. We are judging our environments. We are judging if something is safe or not. We are judging if something is hot or not. We are judging when we breathe in air, if the air is fresh or if it smells like it might be toxic, right? We are taught these skills, not taught these skills. We were born with these skills to be able to protect ourselves. It's a survival mechanism, right? So when we think about biases, we sometimes think about socially constructed biases, right? Racial prejudices, ethnic prejudices, nationality prejudice, whatever, right? But we don't think about things that are just they're biological. We do make bias and judgments innately, sometimes without even thinking about it, and it's just a part of what we do. Is that helpful? I know that, we all judge. We're born to judge, literally. And it's not a bad thing. I'm not here to tell you that it's a bad thing. I'm here to talk about how we can check our biases. Does that make sense? Okay. Tracy, is that a smiley face like, okay, I like where this is going? Or okay, all right. So explicit bias and implicit bias. It's real. We all judge. Okay, you guys don't see me on the weekend when I'm watching TV shows. I am hella judgy, okay? Like, yes, I teach assertive engagement, but we are all people and we are all judging. So if we were gonna sit here and talk about how we don't judge, don't even come at me like that, because we do, okay? We all do. This is just about checking our biases. Some biases are super helpful, some judgments are helpful, and some are not. So explicit bias, expressed directly, and implicit bias, expressed indirectly. So one example that I have of this is One of my explicit biases is I hate pinto beans. I hate them. I don't like them. They're mushy. They're large. I don't like them. I don't like the way they smell. I don't like the way they taste. And I'm sorry if people in the group love pinto beans. I know we probably have some pinto bean lovers. They're not my thing. Okay. And see, I know. I'm sorry, Brian. I know. I can't stand them. I can't stand pinto beans. Okay. And I express this really directly by telling y'all that I hate them. But I'm sorry. I know. I knew that by saying this, you guys are going to be like, wow, Rhea, you don't even know food. That's okay. It's okay. It's fine. I'm okay with that. And my explicit bias is I'm telling you I hate pinto beans. Floyd is left the chat. Floyd, don't leave. Look, wait a minute. Thank you, Tracy. Okay. Thank you, Tracy. Tracy's the only one who got the no judgment piece. Y'all are mean. Okay. I hate pinto beans. I'm sorry. I do. And my implicit bias, it's not saying indirectly, but if I go down the grocery store aisle, I'm not even looking at no pinto beans. I'm only looking at the black beans. I grab those, put them in my cart. I am off with my life. I'm not even looking at them, right? I'm aware of this bias, right? I'm aware that I dislike pinto beans. I'm unaware of this bias sometimes when I'm in the store and I don't even know they exist because I'm only looking for the black beans. I don't see any other beans around. And operates consciously. I know this now in this moment as I'm talking about these beans. I really hate pinto beans. And I obviously have this unconscious bias I didn't know I had. But I know now that I operate subconsciously when I don't even know that they're in the store able to buy. I don't even know where they are on the shelves, you know? This is a really frivolous way to look at bias and judgment, but I think it normalizes it because we all have these feelings, right? We all have these feelings about certain things that we are biased in preference or against, right? So I want you to take a moment and think about that. Think about something that's easy for you to think about that is a bias that you have. And let's talk about it. It doesn't have to be deep. It could be about beans.
I kind of have, I don't know if this is bias or something, but
Okay.
I have my own opinion about joining like the military and stuff, like I personally myself have never been wanting to ever join the military, and I've always been like convinced and pressured to go and stuff. And I'm like, man, I'm not doing that like at all, period. So I don't know if that's bias. Does that fit in bias category?
Yeah, you have a preference to not join the military, right? Despite
Yeah.
the wonderful benefits and possible career opportunities or whatever the benefits are of joining the military. I'm not an expert in this, y'all. But you've decided that's not for me. That's not my life, right? And somewhere along the line, Brian, you had experiences or read information or had conversations with people that allowed that bias to cement for you, that made joining the military not an option. And that's okay, right?
Yep.
Okay, cool. So bias is normal, it's natural, we all do it. That's the premise of this. Anybody else want to be brave and share?
Hector here. I know where the pinto beans. I can show you where the pinto beans are.
Go for it, Hector.
Yeah, I try not to affiliate myself with too many religious people because I like to really like help and make a difference, and some of them just kind of like go to church on Sundays. So I'm not trying to hurt any feelings or anything.
Yeah, and thank you for sharing. So that's bias. That's a moment that you judge. And Hector, your lived experience, your interactions with other people, what you've researched, what you saw in the media, whatever it is, has led you to believe that like maybe folks that are super religious aren't your community, right? And so you just haven't chosen to be in community with those folks very often.
Yeah.
And is that a bias, Hector, that you feel like you need to unpack? Or is that a bias that you're like, it's just what it is? Maybe, they're just not a community that I'm going to fit in with.
Well, I'm talking like, it's kind of like the people that say that they're willing to do a lot of things for the people, and then
when the opportunity rises, they don't do anything. They just stay locked away at home.
Okay.
So it's like it's hard to explain.
So I get it. So the bias is more of a judgment on certain. So in your experience, people that are all about going to church and all that kind of stuff are not so much into the service aspect, and you're really into the service aspect,
Yes.
right? You want to
Yes.
help people, you want to do things, and you've learned that maybe some other folks don't have that same inclination.
Yes.
Okay, got it. Thank you for sharing. See, I know that if we think long enough, we could talk about a lot of biases. This is not my intent either for us to get caught up in how we're judgmental and biased, but just to recognize that we all do it and that's okay, right? So
Correct.
we all do it, and thank you for sharing. We all do it. So knowing that we all do this subconsciously and consciously, we know that sometimes we're going to interact with other people in the world where our biases rub up against their biases, and then we might have a situation of tension and discord, right? So when we think about discord, we also sometimes correlate that with anger. And so I just have a slide about anger so we can talk a little bit about that, because that is really hard for folks when we're talking about tense situations. And everybody has their different comfort levels when it comes to dealing with anger and interacting with anger. So a little bit to know about it. Anger can be a secondary symptom. It can be a secondary symptom for another symptom like frustration, right? So sometimes the anger is not about the situation. It's about underlyingly it's a frustrating situation that happened that you may or may not know about for a person. So keeping that in mind, anger can also be perceived as a loss of control, and it can help a person feel in control or be self-soothing. So we all do things when we get activated. So when I get angry, for instance, I feel tightness in my neck. I know where that lives in my body. I know where it shows up. I know how to recognize before I start getting angry. And so for some people, the expression of anger is soothing for them. Due to their own background and their own experiences and trauma that they may or may not have experienced, those kinds of things, right? I don't know how or why, it is what it is, right? Some people have this reaction in relationship to anger. Anger can also be a protection mechanism from perceived threat. It can also look like deflection. So an example of this would be, I had a friend who had a roommate, and this roommate never did dishes. And my friend was like, I'm so sick of this. We need to talk. So she was like, can we talk about why you're not doing dishes? And the roommate went off and started talking about all the things that she wasn't doing. You don't clean the sink, you don't clean the bathtub, you don't wipe down the counters, blah, blah. So it wasn't about the issue that was being presented. It was about deflecting to all the things that my friend wasn't doing. So her anger manifested in that way. Anger can be a valid response, and I just want to say that nobody's saying anything wrong about anger. Everybody experiences anger, right? It's valid. And it looks different depending on the person. So sometimes someone is really angry and they might be yelling. They might, Alexandra, just 1 second. They might be yelling. They might be raising their voice. They might be pacing, right? And for some people, they get really angry and maybe they cry. And that is the way they express anger. It looks differently depending on the person and their relationship to it. Alexandra, did you have a question?
Actually, I can wait until you're done with this slide, Rhea.
Okay, I'm almost done. And then lastly, and pretty important, anger doesn't always have to lead to violence. And sometimes people do think that because someone is angry, that violence is the inevitable outcome of that anger, and that's not always the case. So don't approach situations like that is going to be the case. Keep yourself safe, of course, and we'll talk about that. But don't assume that all situations involving anger will result in violence. What do we talked about anger? What do we feel about this?
Obviously, anger doesn't always result in violence. Think about when you have a disagreement with your mom or your dad. Violence is usually, it's just you're in trouble or they're mad at you or something, whatever. So it's just people.
Yeah. And Mackenzie, the reason why this, I hear you and I agree 100%. The reason why this is on there, for some people, they think that is the case. They feel threatened and unsafe when someone is visibly angry because they think violence is going to be the inevitable next step. So that's why it's on there. I know it sounds like Rhea, of course, but for some people, that's what they believe.
Thank you.
Any other feedback on this slide? Okay. And Alexander, do you want to give? Oh, sorry.
No,
Go
it's all
for it,
good. I
Brian.
was just gonna say, I mean, I think anger could go both ways, just like all types of emotions, you know. Like you could use anger to your advantage and use it in a positive way to like motivate you, or you could like use it in a negative way to like, you know, do bad things, you know what I mean?
Yep. I mean, everybody has their own relationship to anger. Me personally, anger is really up to my workout game. Like I kickbox and it's the most therapeutic thing ever. And that's how I get my anger out. Like, I mean, I seem cool now, but that's because I've been kickboxing 3 days a week. You don't want to see me on a week I haven't done any because I'm not a great person to be around. So like everybody has their own experiences, right? And their own ways of channeling anger. Okay,
Yeah.
so oh, sorry. Brian, did you have something else to add?
No, that was it.
Okay, thank you. Okay, Discord. So the way that Discord can look, and we're not talking about anger, we're talking about Discord, we're talking about conflict, right? We're talking about lack of engagement or interest. That can sometimes mean there's conflict. Cleaning, compliance, okay, whatever. If a client ever tells you, okay, whatever, they're not bought in, y'all. Like there's something going on there. Arguing or challenging, sometimes, not always, but yes, sometimes this is a symptom of conflict. Dismissing, changing the subject, or avoidance also can be a symptom of conflict. Disagreeing about everything you say. Sometimes I have had experiences where there is nothing that I can do that is right in a situation with someone, and it's because I have failed to repair harm that was done before that I didn't know happened. So that can also be a way that conflict pops up. Blaming, excusing, minimizing, interrupting, talking over, all of these things can be symptoms of conflict or discord that exists. Something to keep in mind when we're experiencing that is, what are we thinking and how are you feeling? A lot of times when you're in a situation and you're observing a potential situation that's going to escalate, you're looking for all the cues, like what are people thinking or what are people doing? How are they interacting? How is their body language? Those kinds of things. And recognizing in yourself how you're feeling, because that is prevention to escalation. Prevention to escalation. So recognizing your own like capacity to be able to engage. If you look at a situation and you automatically made in your mind before engaging who is the victim of the conflict and who is the perpetrator of the conflict, then you're probably not the right person to engage in de-escalation because you've already made assumptions about the situation. And you're probably not going to be able to be unbiased in that situation and resolve it, right? And that bias is going to come out when you're interacting. So just check yourself, check your own feelings and how you're feeling. If you're tired, if you're burnt out, if you hadn't kickboxed that week, whatever the case is, you might not be the person to solve that issue, and that's okay. But recognizing that is part of the solution to this. Is this truly dangerous to you or others? If yes, ensure yours and others' safety. How to recognize, I don't know if you guys learned this in the other part of the training, was how to recognize when you are really in danger and when you're just feeling uncomfortable and you're just feeling a little bit like you're in an unfamiliar territory. That's normal and natural. But if you're feeling danger, like you're in danger, that's something that you want to get to safety on, right? Are there any racial biases or cultural differences embedded? So are you feeling uncomfortable because someone of another ethnicity is acting in a way that you think is displaying anger and you're scared about that? Because if so, maybe you're not really feeling in danger. Maybe you're feeling something else, right? And so that can be a hard one to identify because those are not biases we're trained to recognize on the way. Tika, did you have, I'm sorry if I'm pronouncing your name incorrectly. Did you have a comment?
I'm so sorry. I lost my keys to my laundry room stuff at camp. I'm sorry. I'm really enjoying your guys' this training. Thank you.
Okay, no problem. So just being mindful of that your biases are Sorry, Brad, did you mean to unmute? Okay. What are the power dynamics and power struggles existing? So is there an issue of discord that you're observing where there is a clear power differential? Do you yourself have power in this position? And how is that going to be perceived if you go in to de-escalate it? Being mindful about that. And are you taking this personally? So if you see a situation and you don't know really what's going on, are you making assumptions about the situation before you engage based off your own experience? That can be hard too. Am I over time?
You're
Oh,
great.
no.
Like, I'm so happy you're here. So we had an agenda, and I gave a warning that we may not be able to stick to that agenda. However, it's okay. So we had a tentative break at 3:45, and I noticed that you mentioned activities, and I think that folks really want to do the activities. So if you're down for it, yeah, we can take a miniature break. No, you don't have to move forward. What we can do is we can just end with this section today. So like you can leave it here. I mean, you can either move forward, or we can take a small break and then we can move forward with the next slide, and then we can do the activities. However you want to do it, because I can move. I already talked to Chris and Donald. We can move crisis intervention to tomorrow's programming, so we already have it.
Okay.
Kind of
I'm
situated.
really sorry.
You're fine. This is wonderful. Is everybody okay? Are we all good?
I did
Yeah,
this deal
right.
too.
I'm all good.
Are we really stressed out about not getting to section 4 of this long 5-hour training? Are we okay? I think
Yeah.
we're
Yeah.
I just
Okay.
really want to get to the activities because that's gonna be fun. And we're almost there. We're like a slide away.
Okay,
So
yeah, no, don't rush. So just continue. And then when Ria's done, folks, then we'll probably wrap it up for the day. I'll recap and then I'll figure it out for tomorrow. Okay, so don't worry. We'll probably get out a little bit early, but let's commit this last couple, whatever to Ria. Let's commit our energy to her. Okay?
commit
Thank
to
you.
each other. Don't commit to me, y'all. don't do that. Okay, so mindfulness to discord. This slide is up here because, like I said, de-escalation work, a lot of this work is internal. It's self-work. It's prevention work. It's checking your own self, your assumptions, your bias, your own triggers, where you are on the spectrum, your mood before you engage. Does that make sense why this is a piece of de-escalation? I feel like it probably does. Just want to make sure. Okay, great. Okay, so making space for discord. We in AE like to refer to discord as dance with discord. So I use the example, when you're in a concert, I know it's been a while, y'all, you can't remember a concert right now, but we will have concerts again, okay? So when you're in a concert and the music is nice, but you're like, I'm not on the right spot on the floor. I can't do this back here like this. I need to be down in the middle, that's my section, right in the middle of the front. I'm like, how am I going to get there? I'm going to dance my way through that section. I'm not going to just go through moving people out of the way, get out the way, move, sorry, sit down. I'm not going to do all that. I'm going to dance through it, dance with people on the way, say hi, smile, turn back, and I'm going to get to the spot I need to go to. That's what we're going to think about when we're talking about discord, right? We're not talking about somebody comes at you and says something out of pocket and you're going to clap back, and that's not going to get us to where we got to go, okay? We're going to have to move with it. Okay, we're gonna have to go with the flow, and we're gonna talk about how that works, and we're gonna practice it. But I want to encourage you, think about dancing with discord instead of responding with resistance to it. Just dancing with it, going with the flow, right? Being present for it. Acknowledge discord with reflections, like we talked about. We practiced a little bit. Don't think about it as providing good comebacks. And I mean, Alexander knows I am the queen of the clapback sometimes. And so I have to check my own self, y'all. Like I can't just come out, just say whatever I want. Like, and I know there's some of you in this room who probably feel the same way. And remember, this is not nobody's judging on your comebacks, okay? We're trying to make space for someone's valid anger and like feelings of discord and work with it. I'm just saying. Use clear and concise language. Nothing upsets people more, not nothing. I have found though, in my experience, nothing upsets people more than you using a whole bunch of jargon garbage to try to explain why they shouldn't be upset. No one wants to hear that when they're upset in the moment. When they're escalated, no one wants to hear that, okay? If someone comes in and says, you don't care about serving Latinx folks, you're not going to talk about the racial equity work you're all doing in your equity committee. You're not going to talk about, well, Sheila's the new HR manager. She does a great job. Nobody cares about that. They feel that their community isn't being served. And your job is not to agree with them, but to make space for their valid feelings. Does that make sense? Okay. Okay. And we're going to use empathy. We're going to use empathy even when it hurts. Sometimes people are going to say things about you and question your abilities to do your job. Oh, Guy, are you... Wait, I missed the whole conversation. Guy has everyone's back. Is Guy the one you want to go with at a concert? Is he the one you want to have right there? Okay. That's great. Using empathy to be able to do this. So when someone says, you're terrible at your job, you're terrible at your job, you're not helping me at all, trying not to take that personally, although it's hard because I know you all have pride in your work and you want to do a good job. No one wants to hear that they suck. No one wants to hear that. But the real thing is are you really impacted by someone saying you suck? You still have a job and this person feels like you suck. Isn't the more important thing to make space for their valid feelings and figure out where you're going to go next? I mean, you could clap back, sure. But where's that going to get you? You know, where's that going to get your work? Where's that going to get your client, right? And just thinking about those things in the moment and grounding yourself in who you are so that when you do hear something upsetting or hurtful, you can let it roll off and you can keep it pushing. Which I know, like I said, and I've said it again, it is hard to do and easy to say. So yeah, actively listen without judgment as much as possible. We all judge and just recognize that. Anybody have questions about what making space for discord looks like in practice before we practice? Feelings or feedback about this? It's hard work.
Yeah, I'm Donald Green. I don't want to jump ahead. I don't know how far your slides go, but I just wanted to edit the piece too about you know, when doing AE and doing a lot of this work, a lot of people dump a lot of ambivalence on you, and being mindful of how much you can take and, you know, your feelings and how that is making you feel is key as well. You know, because if you're not in a good space, it's hard to be able to do you can't do assertive engagement if you're in your feelings and at that point they're counseling you. This isn't working. it has broken and you are far from what's supposed to be happening. So just be mindful of how you're feeling in the space that you're in as well when you're doing this assertive engagement. You know, being empathetic and and stuff like that. Wearing that ambivalence can be really tough at times. So just be mindful of your presence and how you're feeling in that space as well.
Yep. Donald, you nailed it. Thank you so much for your comment. Absolutely. We are not all AE all the time, y'all. We're not that way. Like I am not. Like you catch me on a bad day, you're not going to get AE Rhea. So I have to be mindful about that. We all have to be mindful about that. And it's okay. Sometimes people will say things that are really upsetting and they trigger you. And that's okay. Recognizing that you may not be the best person to respond to that person is key. Stepping back if you need to, tapping on support if you need to, that's all super important. Thanks, Donald. Any other feedback about this before we jump into the role play? I think that's the next one. It is, yes. Okay. So if we don't have any more comments, I just want to take a quick second in case we have any more comments. Okay. We're feeling good about it. Okay. So here's our chance to practice, to use our empathy, to use our strength-based lens, thinking that people are the experts in their lives and honoring them as the experts in their lives. Try to leverage any kind of strengths that they've shown us so that they can realize their next step and help, and you can be able to help support them get there. All that stuff we're going to use in this practice. We're going to put all those together. So we're going to write down individually or as a group 5 examples of discord. And so please don't use slurs or oppressive language, but maybe even comments you've heard. An example of discord would be, you're not trying to help me. You don't care about me, right? That's an example of discord. In small groups, number off in 1s and 2s, and we'll take turn. The 1s will take turn tossing out discords, and the 2s will take turn reflecting back, right? And we're going to practice that. How do we feel about those instructions? Do we feel like this is doable?
Yeah,
Okay.
I just have a clarification. So do you want us to number off ones and twos and you want us to do it as a group, or you want me to break everybody off into groups?
Usually I do this in small groups because usually my AE trainings are like 50 big, but I don't know. If you guys want to try it as a large group, we can do that. I'm down. Just about what you think. Large group or small group? Can we do a poll to see how people are feeling?
Rhea, I have not done a poll before, but I am interested in exploring that opportunity.
I'm sorry. I have never done a poll either. That's why I asked. Okay, we have some votes for large group in the chat. Let's do, okay, I'm going to make a little bit more space so that people can chime in. Large group, okay, all right. I think large group is probably winning. Let's do it. Let's do large group. Great. Okay, we didn't even need a poll, see? Okay. So great, that's wonderful. Let's do large group. So how are we going to number off? Let me see if I can see everybody on the screen. So because I'm presenting, Alexandra, I can't see everybody. Could you call people out and have them respond with ones or twos so that they know?
Okay. I'm gonna start with I'll start with Adam first.
Okay.
So Adam will be a one, right? So you just want me to go down the screen?
Yeah.
Okay. Adam, Ari, 2, Brian, 1, Brittany, 2, Central Vimo, 1, Danita, 2, Donald, 1, Dalen, 2, Floyd, 1, Guy, 2, Haley, 1, Jessica, 2, John, 1, Jordan, 2, Jordana, 1, Larissa, 2, London, 1, Marcus, 2, Mariana, 1, Marissa, 2, Mackenzie, 1, Mia, 2, Trish, 1, Ria, 2, Rocio, 1, Ryan, 2, Shayla, 1, Tisha, 2, Tracy, 1, and then there's 2 folks on the line. The number starting in 503 and ending in 53 would be 1, and then the number starting in 971 ending in 20 would be 2. Did everybody? Okay, sorry about that. That was kind of cool.
Yeah, I've never done that before. We're trying new things. Real is better than perfect. Okay, so let's talk about, let me just see. Let's write down, let's popcorn out some Discord options. Let's see. Shayla, did you not get a number? Is that what you're saying? That's what I'm hearing you say.
Oh no.
I thought she was 1.
Shayla.
Yeah. No.
Oh, that was good, Ria. She just played the game. I called you guys out because it was so good.
That was perfect. Okay, but you do have a number now, right?
Yeah, I'm 1. You gave me a number. I'm 1.
Okay, ones. Okay, so the ones are going to take turns throwing out Discord. So anyone who has a 1 or is a 1 can popcorn a Discord right now. I'm a 2, I think, so I can't.
You don't work hard enough.
Okay, 2s. How do we reflect back?
You've expressed that you don't feel like I'm working hard enough or I could put more effort into it.
Okay, all right. What else do we got? Ari?
I'm sorry that you feel that I don't work hard enough. What can I do to help pull my weight a little more?
Good reframe. 2s, what else do we got? Okay.
If you were in my job, what would you do to be better?
Okay. Thanks, Mackenzie. Patricia, or any of the ones, do we feel like those are adequate reframes or reflections? What else do we have here?
I thought the first two were. The third one, I feel like that would be a what is the word I'm looking for? Answering a question with or a statement with a statement.
Okay, so you might get a more discord in response to that one. Is what you're thinking?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's a response that is common, but I feel like in conflict and resolution, and when people do have issues like that in itself would make people be like more defensive in their response. Maybe.
Yeah, it could. How about let's throw out another discord ones? What do you got?
The food.
You don't know what it feels like to be homeless.
Twos, I heard you don't know what it feels like to be homeless. Is that what you said, Donald?
Yes, that's something commonly said around the shelter space.
Yes.
Okay, Adam had a discord. We'll get you next, Adam. Twos, what do we have in response to that? You don't know what it feels like to be homeless.
So I'm not sure if it's proper respond, but like in my case, I would respond, I absolutely agree with you. In my personal experience, no, I don't know. How about you tell me more about that?
Larissa, I heard validation of their experience and an invitation to say more. What do you want to tell me? I'm here. Any other reflections, twos? Ari?
You're right. I may not have experienced that myself, but I would like to know what I can do for you to help support you.
Good reframe, good validation, Ari. What about, no, you're right. I've never been homeless before, but I chose this work because I don't believe anyone should have to be homeless. And I'm looking for ways that I can support you. Tell me more.
Love that.
You can't help me.
Maybe, maybe not, but I want to try. Can we try?
For you, reassure.
How?
That actually literally happened before. Someone came into the office and they were like, you don't help me, you don't care about me, blah, blah. And I was like, look, dude, I get it. I hear you. You're upset. You're frustrated. I get it. I see you. And housing instability is no joke. Like, you know, we are all a paycheck away from homelessness. And so, like, whatever I can do to support you, let me know. And he started crying. He started crying, y'all. So sometimes it just takes a little bit, like, you know, I don't know what's going on, but I'm here. Okay, Adam, did you have, or did anyone else have reflections for that one? Okay, I think Adam might have had a Discord for us. Adam, do you have one?
Yeah, it was a minor one, but we hear occasionally, the food sucks here.
Okay, that's a fun one. The food sucks here. Twos, what do we have? Reflections? Well, this is a fun one, guys. Ari, you're killing it today. You go for it.
Thank you. I know the bagels that come on Monday kind of suck, but we have a lot of snacks and stuff in the office. How about I get you some granola bars or maybe a cup noodle? What can I get for you instead?
I like that, Ari. Asking, well, what kind of food do you like? It sucks. I'm sorry. It sucks. I don't cook it, but what do you like to eat? What's your favorites? Okay, let us switch back. Let's let the twos have an option here to share some Discord, and let's let the ones have the opportunity to respond. Twos, I know you have some Discord. You're just ready to unload. Ari, you have one.
There's one that we've encountered a couple times, the Jupiter. Why do you hate me? Why are you being so mean to me?
Oof. That's a hard one. Ones, what do we got?
How is it that you think that I hate you?
Brian? Did you say why do you think I hate you?
Yeah.
Okay, okay. Ones, how do we feel about that?
I would say I hear you're having some issues with our interaction. Can you give me some examples in some ways that maybe I can improve our communication?
Okay. Validation of the issue, asking how you can support and making it better.
Yes.
Ari, how do you feel about that? Would that trigger more discord, either one of these comments, or do you think that would help the conversation move along?
I feel like, well, at the onset, it's a bit of a charged expression. And sometimes, like, a retort of, well, why do you think I hate you, can also, I think it might, it has the potential to escalate.
Yeah.
Because the person who's expressing that can feel like, well, why don't you know? Why don't you know why you're being mean to me or how you're being mean to me?
Yeah. Alexander said, that's not my intent. In what ways can we prevent this from happening again? Okay.
I like that. That's good.
You think that's what I want to work, Ari? It wouldn't trigger more discord?
That's a little more, there's more diffusion in that. Like it can bring someone down a little. Like, I'm sorry you feel that way. It just a little, trying to bring them down a bit.
Yeah. What about saying, I don't hate you, and I'm sorry that you feel that way? How can I make it better? Oh, Shayla had her hand raised, and then Donald. Oh,
yeah,
Mackenzie.
In situations like this, say, like, your feelings are totally valid. I do want to let you know I really don't hate you, but that doesn't mean that you're not feeling that way. And I really don't want you to feel that way. So if we can talk about it, if you feel comfortable right now, that's fine. If you want to catch up later, I'm really interested to trying to maybe shift this connection or disconnect that we have between us, because it pains me to know that you feel that way.
I mean, I don't think we need another de-escalation after that, Shayla. Yes, and the key is you start off with, I really don't hate you. And, like, I want to acknowledge that that's real for you. Like, what can we do? Adam, I don't know you enough to have any personal feelings, but I'm willing to get you to know you better. Okay. And Adam, that could be a risk, or it could diffuse the situation, right? It could be like, yeah, okay, you don't know me, it's true, I don't know. Or it could be, you do know me, I've interacted with you for weeks and blah, blah, blah. How could you say you don't know me? It depends on the person, right? Okay, so twos are still on Discord. Any other Discords for twos?
I got one for the last one.
Okay.
Someone says why you don't like me. You say, unfortunately, it's not that I don't like you, but if you feel this way, let me step back and get someone else that you feel that may like you. So that's reaching out and utilizing your team in the space that you're in. You're not there by yourself. Reach out to your teammates. Tag somebody else in. You might be the source of the anger, and tapping your teammate in might de-escalate the whole situation all in itself. That person might vent about you to your teammate. It happens. but we can get the solution and their needs met, and that way it's a win-win situation.
And you're not taking it personally, right, Donald? Like you were saying, maybe I'm not the best person to respond to that. Do you want me to get someone else for you to work with? Not everyone's gonna like or feel loved by me. Absolutely. And that's okay. Doesn't mean you're not likable or lovable. It just means maybe not the best person to respond to the situation. Thanks, Donald. Okay, let's try one more because I know y'all want to get out. You've been doing this training thing for a while. I don't want to keep you guys too long. Especially if guests know you from previous programs. Yes, Brittany, sometimes that happens, and that could be a really good thing and can not be a really good thing sometimes, right? People have their own perspectives. Oh, Guy, did you raise your hand?
Yes, I have one.
Okay.
This place triggers my addiction.
Oh, that's a meaty one. Okay, let's do it. What do we have? This place triggers my addiction.
I probably hit them with like, we do have these other options available, like other people that like are qualified to talk to you about this situation. That is available to you if you want that. If you want us to move forward with it.
Yep. State other resources, Brian. That's great. Any ones that we have?
In that situation, I would probably say something like, "Oh wow, I hear you saying that you're feeling really triggered about your addiction right now, and we have these awesome peer support specialists available. For instance, Dave's working today. He's super chill. If you're up to it, I can go grab him and he can take a walk with you, and support you."
Great, Hallie, identifying another resource and saying you're sorry that you're having this experience. This feels hard. Danita, Adam had a one in the comment box. If you think we're impeding your progress, we can work to find you a better solution. Yes. If you feel like you might have a setback, we don't want you to have that. Let's see how we can find some other options for you. Sorry, I'm missing the chat. I have one. Why do y'all keep knocking on my door? I'm trying to get some sleep. Oh, Danita, is that Discord? Okay.
I think it is. I think Danita's having audio.
Oh no. First, I want to ask Guy. Guy, do you feel like these reflections and these reframes would have been helpful in that situation?
Most definitely, yes.
Okay.
Thank you. I needed that. That's awesome.
Great. Mia said, "I'm sorry this is coming up for you in the space. That's really difficult. It sounds like recovery is something that's important for you. And speaking up what you need about what you need takes a lot of strength. What can we do to support you?" Perfect. Empathy, strength-based, validation, reframe, all of that in there. Great job, Mia. And you can use that as a way to move forward. Yes, Patrick. Sorry, I'm getting kind of lost in that chat box feed. Good work, guys. That's hard. That was a hard one, right? Okay. Do we have time for one more? I feel like I don't have any more slides. No, let's do debrief. We did a lot of these. It's fine. We'll do debrief and we'll get out. So what was challenging about this exercise? What did you find was hard?
Trusting your responses, knowing that what you're going to say is going to be received or understood or correct or wrong. Just all those. So I think what makes it hard for people to talk is like they don't want to sound, people don't want to sound like stupid or like they lack knowledge or like they're not understanding. And I think every answer is a good answer because it can be redirected.
Yep. It's taking a risk and it's scary. It's hard work. Hoping they're receptive. Yes, Patrick, you're making sure your comments, your reframe are going to yield the right outcome, which is not escalating the person. Ari's working out a way to connect to what the person is saying and expressing empathy. Try to come up with a response. It's hard. It is hard. It is hard, especially when you're like, oh crap, how do I respond to that? On the phone, and I'm going to tell you this, a funny situation. On the phone, I got a call when I was working at the front desk also. And he said, you know, you guys don't serve white people anymore. And the guy was like real serious about it, y'all. He was like, you don't serve white people anymore. Like, you know, I see all these other people getting help, blah, blah. And I'm like, I didn't know how to respond. I was like, okay. Okay. I mean, and I just went on AE on him and I was like, I'm hearing that you're feeling like you're not getting the services you need. How can I support you? But in the moment, I'm like, this dude clearly doesn't know that I'm a person of color. He clearly thinks he's talking to someone who's part of his community and he's expressing frustration that he's not getting the help that he needs. And that's valid and real for him. And we had to work through it. So it can be really complicated. It can be challenging. Just check yourself, which I think everybody did a really great job in doing. Shayla, you raise your hand?
That particular thing is something that's really hard for me to hear. And so that's a trigger for me. Automatically, I already know I want to tear this guy. But I also am not just going to tiptoe around it as a white person, kind of too. I can relate in that way. Like he might be more receptive to me if that's maybe the case. I can kind of gauge that. But I respond saying, like, I've said that, like, it sounds like you feel like your rights are being infringed upon, or like you're not getting access to care. And hearing me say that out loud could plant the seed that, dude, your rights are not completely being infringed upon. But I also don't know, like, as a white thing, as a race, but as a person, he might have gone through hell. But him bringing race into it, me saying that could plant the seed and point the attention that it's maybe not race that's doing that or not. So I just leave it there, and then I'll also be helpful after that.
Yeah, you hope that it grows. You hope that the seed grows, you plant what you can, you water it a little bit, you move on. And that situation, he didn't know who was on the other end of the phone, right? So he was taking a risk, but also what he was feeling was really valid to him and really real. And I didn't have to agree with him. I didn't have to disagree with him. I just had to make space for his valid feelings, right? And get him to his next step. And that's the key. No matter what it is, you will find some things that'll just be like, oh, wow, I can't believe they said that. That's okay. We all say off the wall things sometimes. Y'all know you've done it. Don't hold people accountable, but don't judge them too harshly. Everybody's going through it, right? So try to be compassionate and have grace with folks, and remember to check your own biases. Any other comments about this exercise? I know it was a little different than I normally do, but I think it worked out as a large group.
I mean, I just want to say you do some really good activities, though. Just keeping it real.
Okay, you have to come to my long session, Brian, because my normal one is like 4 days long, and it is great. And I have a couple other facilitators. They're equally as fun, and like, I really do think AE is going to change the world. I really do think that, because every time I do a training, I learn stuff. I learn from y'all, and I really appreciate you guys having me back.
Yep, sign me up.
Yes. Okay, I'll send you the link. Hold you to that, Brian. I'm gonna hold you to that. Okay, y'all. I don't want to keep you any longer. Alexander, do you want to do a wrap up? Because I'm gonna just take all your time.
Oh no, it's all good. Like, honestly, I mean, the workshop is scheduled until 5. Feel free to wrap up. Yeah, we're scheduled till 5. You know what I'm saying? I wasn't able to provide a break between the 3 to 4 and 4 to 5. So I mean, but we're almost done. So I'd feel comfortable if you wanted to, finalize what you feel comfortable, and then I will just kind of recap what the objective learning, and then we can be fine, and then we'll just regroup tomorrow.
Okay, well, I do want to end on the cultural humility video. I feel like that's really important. We talked about a lot today, y'all. We talked about biases. We talked a little bit about that. In the regular AE training, we do have a little bit more racial equity grounding, and I just wanted to be mindful of time. But I think the concept of cultural humility is a lens that we can bring to our work that really is going to be infused in everything that we do. And it's the idea that you don't have to be culturally competent, that no one is going to know somebody else's culture or be an expert in it. That's not what our goal is. Our goal is just to acknowledge that everyone has their own trauma, their own lived experience due to their cultural backgrounds. Just be mindful of that and always seek to explore and learn and connect. And I think this video is a really good video by the founders of cultural humility. They kind of coined the term, and they were researchers, and it's just about why they came up with this term, and I think it might be helpful. So it's only like 6 minutes long, but if you want to end on a video, and then Alexander, I'll pitch it back over to you. I want to make sure the sound works because I haven't done it in Google, so bear with me.
One word to describe cultural humility for me is love, actually. If I had to encapsulate cultural humility, the whole concepts of cultural humility, it doesn't do it justice, but the word that I think of it that is essence. Escucha. Open. Receive. Compassion. The principles of cultural humility offer one more framework to contribute to what has got to be our ultimate goal. Yes, our ultimate goal is that there will be a sense of equity, a sense of equality, and a kind of respect that we are driving forward. Cultural humility is a multi-dimensional concept, and certainly Melanie Turvalon and I conceptualized 3 dimensions. The first is lifelong learning and critical self-reflection. And in the critical self-reflection, it is the understanding of how each of us, every single one of us, is a complicated, multi-dimensional human being. Each of us comes with our own histories and stories, our heritage, our point of view. You're looking at me now. I am very fair-skinned. When I was a little girl, my hair was blonde. My eyes are blue. People often try to call me anything but African American. I have a history. My identity is rooted in that history. My parents gave me the knowledge of my own social identity, and my own experience in life has created that. I get to say who I am. The second tenet, after self-reflection and ongoing lifelong learning and development, is this notion that we must mitigate the power imbalances, to recognize and mitigate the power imbalances that are inherent often in our clinician, patient or clinician client or service provider community dynamics. And then finally, the piece that I would offer that Jan and I feel people often either don't read or don't like, which is, and the institution has to model these principles as well. An African American nurse is caring for a middle-aged Latino woman several hours after the patient had undergone surgery. A Latino physician on a consult service approached the bedside and, noting the moaning patient, commented to the nurse that the patient appeared to be in a great deal of post-operative pain. The nurse summarily dismissed his perception, informing him that she took a course in nursing school in cross-cultural medicine and knew that Hispanic patients overexpressed the pain that they're feeling. The Latino physician had a difficult time influencing the perspective of this nurse, who focused on her self-proclaimed cultural expertise. It was curious to this Latino physician, who, first of all, was Latino, not like all, in his case, not like all Mexican Americans know everything there is to know about Mexican American patients. That wasn't it, but he might have been a resource for that African American nurse in that moment that she didn't feel like she needed, again, because
she had bought into this notion of competence, of cultural competence. The distinction between cultural humility and cultural competence was that we were in a process and a relationship that had many other layers to it, and that we were less comfortable with with even the term of competence in a way that I think people understand well, and that it implies, especially for people who are providers and are trained in academia, that you are then all knowing and all powerful. And we felt like that was not what was happening for us as we were learning from community and understanding in a very practical way how families were coming to the hospital and feeling as if they really were not being heard from their own heritage and history, and how that impacted what they came to the hospital with that we didn't know anything about, hadn't even a clue about. For us, this is part of the humility piece of it, getting to understand that, not trying to humiliate you, not trying to make you feel bad, trying to help us all understand that life is like this, and to, in a certain sense, be really happy about not knowing. In April of 1992, in the wake of the Los Angeles riots, following the initial not guilty verdict of the police officers accused of beating Mr. Keynes, the Children's Hospital Oakland community was compelled to meet in a series of highly charged sessions to expose and critique our own patterns of institutional racism, injustice, and inequity. My name is Dr. Melanie Turvalon, and I am Director of Multicultural Affairs here at Children's Hospital Oakland. I want to thank everybody for coming to what is a celebration for me of this year. Jan and I have the good fortune, really, to be together in the same place when this work was evolving. Jan and I, while we're several years difference in age, are both African American women, and both raised by women who were teachers. And we come out of that, and fathers who are working men, who come out of that Southern tradition and who participated fully in the civil rights movement in the way that meant that they made sacrifices and their children made sacrifices, and they taught us about those sacrifices and raised us each in ways to understand that we were here to serve.
I just really love that video. Thank you all for inviting me back and for sharing this space with me. And I hope that you'll take some of the tools we talked about today and continue practicing them. Also, I hope that you'll take a lens of cultural humility and recognize it's okay that you're not going to know all the things, but recognize that we can all try and work to do better. And that's what we're here to do. So I'm a resource if you want to ever reach out and connect or have questions about anything, feel free. Alexandra, I'm going to kick it back to you.
Thank you, Rhea. Does everybody want to say bye to Rhea? Feel free to stay on the line,
Thank
Rhea.
you, Rhea.
Yes, and of course, Rhea, you are always welcome back anytime, any place. Rhea definitely gives me suggestions in regards to assertive engagement and the tips and tricks that I send you all, and she will be providing ongoing guidance to me and support for us. So please use her as a resource or reach out to her. Don't use her. Reach out to her. Thank you so much, Rhea. And we are all looking forward to our COVID-19 shelter assertive engagement training, which I have already put a plug in. As you know, I am good at something. So we're going to have that in the forecast, and we're looking forward to that. Thank you, Rhea. I appreciate you.
Bye, y'all.
Thank you.
Yeah, that was really great.
Thank you.
It was really long day. Just want to do a quick recap of what we learned today and kind of tell you what to expect tomorrow. Unfortunately, we weren't able to get to crisis intervention today. However, Christopher Sage and Donald Green and I will be leading that tomorrow morning, and we'll loop that into the emergency response, chain of command, and safety on the job. We'll probably run it the same way. However, be prepared to be flexible as we were today. I do want to just recap what we did learn today. So we started off with crisis intervention, and I'm going to refer to my notes because I'm kind of dying off here too. So we were able to identify factors that can lead to, what is conflict, understand conflict in related terms, and then identify factors that can contribute to conflict, and understanding responses to conflict and common conflicts in the workplace. We understood there can be some negative effects of unresolved conflicts, and that 3 needs that need to be met to resolve conflict. Mia was able to lead us in learning ways to deal with conflict and understanding some conflict resolution goals. She was also able to explore and share some approaches and some different conflict resolution styles. And then also mentioned creating safer spaces and spaces for conflict resolution to even occur. Ria tapped this off with like assertive engagement. I really like the punitive hierarchy versus the assertive engagement. She mentioned 3 sets of assertive engagement. We went from all of it: empathy, active listening, discord, mindfulness of discord. What were some other things that we were able to talk? And then we were able to actually role play, and I really appreciate that engagement. And it sounds like it was it was a really packed day, and I'm really excited that you all have enjoyed it. In the meantime, please, if you haven't, please review my emails that I sent out. That has some resources for you all in for today and tomorrow if you want to do some additional learning or just for you to file away. But I did just want to say this: we have also, Mia, Donald, Chris, and I, and Ria, we have also created a de-escalation toolbox of all the links, quick references, one-pagers, and kind of like compiled this like easy click and go thing so where y'all can like have access to all of these materials. So if you weren't able to view the videos, if you came in late, all that stuff, you're going to have it. We already have it created and it's ready to go. So like this is kind of major that we have all of this kind of combined. And then of course the binders will be coming shortly as soon as I can get those printed. I will probably regurgitate this tomorrow, but I wanted to let y'all know that we are actively trying to feel like knowing that we got to get you the tools. We're trying to think of outside the box. Thank you so much for the feedback that we have gotten from the surveys. For this training, we will have one survey, and on that survey, it will say, did you attend day 1, day 2, or both? And that's just the way I'm going to capture it because I got a lot of surveys out here. So don't worry about the survey today. However, please brain dump any questions or any thoughts on a piece of paper, discuss it with your team, send me an email. If I'm not the right person, find somebody that's the right person. Any way to get the information to me or my boss or this team, we're all open and we're willing to like work on this together. Any last thoughts? Last comments? Are we all alive? Can we unbuckle our seatbelt now? Can we get out of the car? Okay, we're good, and I'll see y'all tomorrow, right? Okay, we're gonna pat ourselves on the back, not scratch. Okay, my brother told me I need to stop scratching myself and pat myself, and I just learned that, and I'm turning 40 in a month, so I'm telling y'all to do the same thing. Donald, Mia, anybody else, do you have any last things? And thank you so much for your dedication to like my vision and like just trying to throw this together last minute. I really appreciate it.
What time does the workshop tomorrow?
Same time, same place, same time, different link. So everybody should have access and been invited to both days. If you haven't, alexandra.appleton@mocall.us. Let me know. I'm up early. I will get the message.
All right, cool.
And everybody should have access to the Jamboard as well. I've had a couple people chime in during this. So hopefully the Jamboard will be a tool that we will also be able to use because I think y'all really like the Jamboard. That gets kind of fun when we can be artistic and show our art. Brittany, I see your hand raised.
Hi, sorry. We have a couple of staff who are new who don't have access to their county emails yet. Am I allowed to share it with their personal emails?
Yeah.
All right. Thank you.
Yep, and any way that I can make it easy for you, Brittany, whether it's through me, just let me know for sure. Thank you for letting me know. And then I see let me see if I can find. I see another B, but I want to make sure I get the name right. Brian.
Hey, so is tomorrow part 2 or is that still part 1?
That's part 2. So we're gonna. Yeah, part 2. We're moving. We got to get something on the map, then we got to get feedback, and then we're going to scope this to the way that y'all want it to be. For real, like this is going to be, we want a de-escalation training that's going to meet the needs of our COVID-19 response, the joint office COVID-19 response. There will be other trainings, which is a friendly reminder that we will have a de-escalation 2 in April. But I need to be clear that that will have a broader audience, and that's going to be open to community partners. There's benefits of both. However, if we're trying to shift the culture that we have, we got to take care of home before we go outward facing. And so I encourage folks, and I encourage you to suggest to your teammates to try to attend tomorrow, and or at least try to watch the video, which I will also make available. And then y'all can decide how you're going to break that down and be able to watch that within your teams, talk to your management and leadership. Does that make sense? But the invite for the April Zoom training should get to you via your manager, not me, probably around Friday, okay? Because we're on it. It will be a different platform because it'll be a broader audience. That's going to be a whole different ballgame. That's going to be probably about 100, 200 people. Any last questions? I really appreciate it. I'm so happy we kept a full crew. It was 40 people in the training. Like, this is amazing. And it was like diverse and it was participatory. Like, this is a success for all of us. And I hope we recognize that. Like, every single one of us. This is good. Shared information, yay. Are we good?
I just hope y'all never stop.
Thank you. Good job.
Yeah.
Okay,
Oh,
bye.
It was awesome.
Okay, bye.
Bye. Yeah, y'all. I gotta stay until y'all leave. So bye. I'll see y'all tomorrow.
See you tomorrow. Peace out.
Thank you. I'll see you guys tomorrow. Excited.
Thank
You're
you.
welcome.
Bye.
Thank you, everyone. I really appreciate it.